evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame. This is Darlington as it plays host to the 27th race of the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. Here tonight in the Motorsports Drop 200 at Darlington Raceway. Drivers will look to take the checkered flag at this famed racetrack, but also here tonight, the playoff grid. At least 11 of the 12 spots will be determined when the checkered flag waves. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCurry. And Anthony, talk about a track to have your playoff hopes either dashed or come about heading into Daytona. This is going to be a really technical track for these drivers to have to maneuver, and all the time be aware of where their competition is.
It's been a rough 2 weeks for these drivers. Last week we were in Bathurst for 2 hours, and now we're here at probably one of the toughest ovals that they're going to have to face all season long. And like you said, it comes right at the cutoff line for the playoffs. So this track, we know Darlington. This track has never been easy for any of these drivers. The famed Darlington stripe that we're going to undoubtedly see on every one of these cars at the end of the night. And the fact that there's so much on the line for those guys who are trying to get into the playoffs. And by the time we get to Daytona, that's going to be the time that you're going to have to make your moves here in order to make your Daytona not so scary, in other words.
Going to be filling you in on the drivers that are currently locked in, could be locked in, and pretty much need a win to be able to get in. Plus, there's the wild card race at Daytona in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be filling you in on the details of that as we take a look at the starting lineup. How about Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Malik Ray starting on the pole position alongside of Garrett Conrad, Tyler Gary, and our points leader Jonathan Oates, who's already locked into the playoffs here tonight. He'd love to be a two-time winner. They're going to make up row two with Ryan Doucette and Parker White, who was up there inside of the top five for a good portion of that 2 hours of Bathurst last week. That's going to be row three as we look in through the remainder of the lineup here. And if you're a driver that's coming into this race, Anthony, and you already know that you are locked into the playoffs, either have won your way in or pointed your way in, do you just come in tonight at Darlington with a survival mentality, or do you come into this with, you know what, let's go for it. Let's see if we can rack up some more playoff points before we end up getting to Daytona in 2 weeks?
It could be a bit of a hybrid. You never know with these drivers. They come in with different motives. For those drivers that are trying to get their way in, the only thing that they're out here to do is make sure that they get the maximum amount of points they can, and if they can get a win, then that's the best way to get that accomplished. But this track is, like we said, is going to make it kind of impossible to do that in some sense, as they're pulling off the grid. There was a little bit of a problem with the 9. He's got that car back going again, though. But once some of these drivers, absolutely, they might want to come in and rack up as many points in order to pad their stats at the end of the season and try to make it so that when we get to Daytona, it's going to be a little bit easier, if not a little bit more of a cushion. So you feel better going to Daytona, not so stressed, not so pressured. But they got to get through tonight first, which is a doozy in of itself, as this is probably one of the largest fields that we have seen this season. A full 42 car grid for these, or make that a 43 car grid for tonight's race. So there's also going to be traffic. This track is going to have a lot of traffic midway through the race, maybe even late in the race that some of these leaders are going to have to deal with. It's going to be one hectic end of regular season, I should say, for these drivers tonight.
Of course, being Darlington, a lot of drivers out there with the throwback liveries. We'll be documenting them during the course of tonight's 147 lapper as the Motorsports Drop 250 is green at Darlington. Already top 6, 7, 8, all getting themselves single filed out. That's pretty smart. It's going to be side by side for round 8. That's where Sean Butler in a throwback there to Steve Park. He's on the inside of Brett Pancari, one of the 3 drivers that have already won their way into the playoffs.
They have, so not much in the way of stress coming into this race. Everyone's single filing out throughout the top 10. Make that a little bit even outside the top 10 as a battle on for 11th between Knoll and Painter. Or make that Painter and Thornton. Thornton on the inside of the racetrack, which is not the ideal place to be at, as there's contact made. A little bit of a slide, but will save the car going down the back straightaway. He's getting freight trained on the outside line, which is the preferred line around 1 and 2. And even in through 3 and 4, you can carry more speed and kind of diamond the corner through there as he tries to slide back in line.
You're hearing that word a lot here tonight, slide, because we know that there's not a whole lot of grip available to these drivers at the old track surface of Darlington, and running in the daytime, the Suns had the opportunity to be beaten down on this racetrack, and some of these drivers, they are going to be struggling for grip. Saw about 3, 4, 5 different cars that were slideways off turn 2 the last time by. As you see back here, this battle still around the 13th, 14th, 15th position. Things getting stacked up ahead. Got a battle going on there. That is Seth Knoll in the 54, I believe, that was making a pass. No correction. Instead, that was TJ Bursk, I think, that was trying to take a look there on Parker White for the 6th position. I think it takes a little bit of getting used to of who is where right now with all these drivers running those throwback liveries, kind of used to the schemes they usually run throughout the season.
Yeah, it messes up a commentator when you're trying to find a driver that you're so used to seeing in one scheme or maybe 2 schemes all year long, and then this race specifically coming in with all the schemes, like you said. It's fun for us, though, because we get to see some of these throwback cars and get to kind of reminisce on either memories that we might not have been around for, or some drivers that are bringing back schemes that you remember from other series or nostalgic whatever has it. And it's a really fun race, this one. One of my favorite schemes so far is running. I don't know where he's running right now. I'll have to find it later. But one of my favorite schemes, I'll point it out when I find it. But so far, everyone is still single filed out. It's been pretty calm at the front of the field since the start of the race. I got to touch on Malik Ray. He was not waiting around on the start of the race. He started going around the exit of turn 4. And he had already gotten everybody cleared by a couple car lengths by the time he got to the start-finish line. So already going into the race with a massive lead and keeping it so far over Conrad, which is closing the gap, though. It's steadily closing in since the start. He's also bringing Gary with him. In fact, everyone is pretty much evenly stacked out a few car lengths nose to tail from each other. So everyone kind of just settling in line. It's a long race. Don't want to use your stuff up too early on in the run.
Got TJ Bursk there in the 70. He keeps wanting to peek out of line on Parker White. Bursk, of course, a winner a couple of weeks ago at Michigan, if I recall correctly. And filling in the 70 car that we normally see Alan Balancino driving here this evening. Still trying to take that 6th position away. And in terms of Malik Ray, I was kind of watching him there. Even though he's all by his lonesome, I mean, he's razor's edge going through the corners. He's almost shaking hands without that outside wall when he goes into 1 and 2.
Yeah, he's getting really up on the racetrack. In fact, right through there again, he was flirting with the outside retaining wall. But
oh, Zachary Thornton! Contact between himself and another car. Everyone stacks up. We got a spinner there. Now the caution is going to wave. That was, I believe, Matthew Zwack in the 18 that was looped around on the apron. They almost all got through that without incident, but unfortunately just too many cars looking for the same spot, trying to avoid that wreck over there in turn 1.
I believe that Margot might have been caught up in it as well. Zwack has, I think, he's gone off the track. I don't know if he'll get back on or not. A couple other drivers. Thornton, you mentioned, went around. That was one of the ones that was definitely involved. Not really seeing anyone else that's obvious at the minute, though.
Look and see what happened here to Zachary Thornton. I couldn't quite off the top of what I saw there tell who the car was that made the contact with him.
That was a blue and purple car.
And I believe that might have actually been the 93 of Rabideau.
It was just the slightest of touches as well. He just barely clipped the back end and sent the car sliding up the track. And I think everyone would have avoided it had Zwack not. It looks like he was trying to brake for it, and then the car just snapped to the right. I don't think he was intending for that. It definitely looked like it just kind of snapped up towards the outside wall, and unfortunately, that's where the car was.
Spun right in front of Andrew Schwartz, who was able to get on the brakes. Nice job by a number of drivers there, being able to whoa up, not make that a bigger wreck than it was, but it didn't take a whole lot of contact there between Rabideau and the 135 of Zachary Thornton for trouble to break out. Now, noticing here, you talked about the 18 of Matthew Zwack kind of disappearing from our telemetry. Thornton and Spencer Ray have also done the same. And I'm not necessarily certain what's going on in that regard, because the 18 was looking like he was blinking quite a bit there after the spin out. So I'm wondering if he might have been dealing with some connection issues here. Thornton as well. I'm not certain what's going on in that regard, but both of them right now not being shown in the race, at least not on my timing screen.
Yeah, Thornton, Zwack, Ray.
Now
all
Malik
three.
Ray's having some problems.
He is indeed. So that's the leader with a bit of connection issue. That's going to, at the moment, give Garrett Conrad the lead. So this is...
I don't know if there's anything in it, but all four of the drivers that are having these connection problems are driving Supras.
It must be a Toyota. Well, they're leading the Le Mans 24-hour right now, so they might... the Toyota might be sending all of their resources from everywhere to the Le Mans effort, but yeah, Ray is definitely having some struggle at the front of the field right now. Conrad is sitting there thinking that if Ray times out or gets booted from the server, which none of us really want that to happen, Conrad is sitting there thinking, oh, well, this is a small opportunity. If Ray gets booted out of the server, it'll hand him the lead. But Conrad was catching up the gap quite a bit the last time by. It wasn't enough to really close within a few laps. But if the run had gone on for any more than 20 laps, I'm pretty sure we would have seen a battle for the lead between Conrad and Ray. But looks like the connection has stabled out for Malik Ray. Tyler Gary still in third place. Everyone pretty much running the exact same spot in which they started the race in, so that's good news for the top 10.
Still looks like Thornton and Zwack, either one of them, have come back into the server, and that's kind of an important thing for Matthew Zwack. We'll take the opportunity here real quick to fill you in on what the playoffs look like right now. Now, 11 drivers will lock themselves in tonight. The 12th driver is going to be determined in a wild card race in a couple of weeks at Daytona. I'll explain that in just a moment a little bit further. So right now, 7 drivers took the green flag knowing they are going to be in the playoffs. Jonathan Oates is the points leader and former winner this season. Also Brent Pancari, who won at Talladega, and Jake Poulin, who won at Daytona. They all know that they're locked in through wins. Nathan Rabideau, who we just saw there having the contact between himself and Thornton, he's locked in on points. Andrew Schwartz, Sean Butler, and Nate Stewart. Those drivers know they will be going into the postseason. The other spots right now, the other 4 spots, would be held if we have no new Grand National Series winner go to victory lane here tonight by Matthew Zwack, Lucas Palesel, Gary Waterworth, and Tristan Hagenstein. Now for Zwack, he just needed to finish up inside the top 35. He'd be locked in. Palesel needs to finish up inside the top 10 to be locked in. Waterworth needs to finish up in the top 3 to be locked in on points. And Tristan Hagenstein, there's no way that he can lock himself in on points. He just needs to hope that no new Grand National Series driver goes to victory lane here tonight. So, and the fact that Matthew Zwack right now is being scored in the 42nd position, he hasn't met that mark yet to have himself locked into the playoffs via points.
Yeah, and the longer he spends out of the session, the worse it's going to be. He's already down 4 laps at the current moment, and as it continues to run, it's going to get even worse. So that's hard, but you never want that to happen, especially considering that right before the disconnection happened, he was involved in the crash. It wasn't a whole lot of damage that was sustained on the 18 though, so I don't think it would be enough it would have taken him out of the race. So that's why I don't think it's a retirement. It seems an awful strange retirement. But if you're someone else that is running in this race, if you're Hagenstein right now, then it's kind of a little bit of a wake-up call. He's running 25th at the moment. He can control his destiny. If he can get to the lead of this race and win the race, then that would be a little bit of a cushion, and that would essentially give him the playoff spot because no new winner would win and he would be in. So goal for him is to get to the front of the field as quickly as possible. Green flag back in the air. They're stacking up behind, and I think they're around. I think it's Shelton that's gone around.
I think you're right, Ryan Shelton. Not sure. Yeah, actually, Tyler O'Neill in the 031. No. Not sure who it was. Actually, it might have been O'Neill, and he just teleported to pit road. That started with the race leader, though. Malik Ray had trouble there spinning the tires coming to the green flag, and that just stacked everybody on back, especially on that outside line, just really stacked them up.
It did. He didn't get going. In fact, the inside line, it wasn't Malik Ray. Malik Ray, he did spin the tires. He went up to the top of the track. In fact, everybody on this restart, I don't know what was up with the track surface. The heat's not making it good for these drivers, but as soon as the green flag came out, everyone started spinning. You could see a few rows back. That's when the trouble started, as it was just contact, I think.
Jack Painter in the 22 that was getting out of shape there on the inside line.
Exactly. And Painter came up and tagged the 031 and then triggered a chain reaction. Thankfully, it looks like it was only those two cars that really made contact. So I think everyone else got away with it. There was a lot of cars behind them when that happened. So thankfully it only involved two cars, but it was so strange to see everybody get out of shape that restart.
Well, Tyler O'Neill was running the David Rudiman throwback there, the Burger King car, which, if I'm correct, I believe that was 2007 when he drove that machine. Michael Waltrip Racing. He is now scored in the garage area, so they're quickly piling up here at Darlington. I mean, everybody here tonight, for the most part, is going to leave with a souvenir, that famed Darlington stripe, but usually you can have the battle wounds but still be able to continue on. Not certain exactly about the damage to the front end of that 22 of Jack Painter. He is, I believe, towards the back. It just come to pit lane in that machine. Actually, I think being the cause of the wreck, he is dropping to the rear of the field, taking an EOL. He's, of course, throwing it back to Jason Keller, that Miller High Life machine that Keller raced back in the day.
It's a beautiful car as well. More TV time than I think he was looking for, and for the wrong reasons. But nevertheless, a beautiful scheme on that car. I did find the one that that I had mentioned earlier. That was my favorite. It's a 38, and he is right now running in the. I can't really find him right now, but rocking the 2005 Carl Edwards scheme, which I've always loved that scheme, and I have no real reason why. It's always stuck out to me, and seeing that on the track is really nice. But update on all that was involved. I think O'Neill has taken it behind the wall officially this time, and that was a DNF. It was a DNF, not a disconnection. Those drivers that disconnected have not made it their way back in just yet, but we are still under pacing. Seth, what do you think caused that stack up? It certainly wasn't, well, we're about ready to go to green, but that stack up, do you think we're going to see that something similar again? Certainly these drivers might want to be a little bit more careful on this restart, because the hot track temps, the fact that these tires get cold under pacing, it could lead to some pretty catastrophic spins.
I find it interesting, Malik Ray was on the top side of the front row for the last restart. He shows the inside line now, so maybe there's something with that top line in terms of wheel spin that he did not want to deal with. You see him getting up through the gears there, but right there, that where he accelerated, that's why we saw the incident there, the stack up on that restart, because everybody was trying to anticipate when the leader was going to go. As soon as that iRacing pace car hits pit lane, the leader can accelerate at any point from there to the start finish line. So everybody was trying to time the restart. Unfortunately, some drivers, I think, timed it earlier than others did.
Yeah, they had to stack up. I think the rule is you can't make any passes until you get to the line. I believe that's the rule here. So,
yep.
Don't want to get a penalty. A penalty at this track is almost your race over. You'll certainly go down a lap if you have to serve a time penalty down on the pit road. Any track outside of a super speedway, it's basically, like I said, race over. And as they run right now, we got Ryan Doucette on the inside line of the 32 of Butler, who's just got squeezed by. Whoa, look at the rocket of the 117 of Cowden coming down the back straightaway.
He's going to try and see if he can tuck up in front of Brent Pancari, and I think he'll complete that pass there off of turn 4. Nice move by the 117 as he'll slot into the 8th position, following in the tire tracks of Ryan Doucette. Mentioned about Sean Butler in the 32. He's throwing it back to 1997 with Steve Park, and only a couple cars up ahead, Tyler Gary in that 026. Now, I'm going to admit that when I initially saw Georgia Pacific on that car, my mind went to Kyle Petty, but then I remembered that another very popular driver ran those colors, and that'd be Buckshot Jones. That's who he's throwing back to here tonight.
Yeah, I thought Petty as well, so I mean, Buckshot. I think I have a Buckshot Jones car somewhere that I have as a diecast. So, and I didn't realize he drove that scheme also.
Whoa!
I mean,
Did you see Dalton Cowden slideways off of 2 there?
oh my! Yeah, I just out of the corner, it looked like there was a white car going somewhere it wasn't supposed to be.
Man, nice save there, but you have to wonder, you know, the slipping and sliding is going to really start wearing down those rear tires, and the last thing you want to do is be coming off a corner at Darlington with no grip in the rears.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the speeds that they're running. Some people don't understand the speed that you get here at Darlington. The drivers do. They know what kind of speed you get here, but right now on my telemetry, we're seeing drivers going down the back straightaway, topping out around 160, and then going down the front straightaway. Now, obviously, turns 3 and 4 are tighter than 1 and 2, so you can carry more speed through 1 and 2. 170 is about how fast you get going down the front straightaway, and then you can hold about 150 throughout 1 and 2. So you're running speeds extremely fast around this track, and it looks impressive, but when you consider that the actual groove that you can run at this track is relatively thin compared to other tracks that you go to on the regular season, and the fact that it's really not defined, you can see there's a little white dashed line, but you can use any and all of the surface you want to. It's just your banking may vary depending where you put your car.
Love that onboard view courtesy of the 73 of Casey Nemez, currently running just outside of the top 15 in that throwback to Jimmy Means' 1995 car, because a lot of those cars that were up ahead of him, you saw where the noses were kind of pointing down to the inside of the racetrack. Now, that could be a combination of 2 things. That could either be the back end of the car wanting to step out and pointing the nose down to the inside, but it almost looked like for some of them, maybe the car getting a little bit tight through the center, and they were literally yanking on the wheels, yanking them to the left, trying to get the nose pointed to get off the corner.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of these drivers having struggle with trying to get the corner entry right throughout 1 specifically. I know that a lot of these drivers like to run the extreme high line. In fact, it's like one of the fastest lines that you can run at this racetrack. But I've noticed one of them was Cabrera right in front of the aforementioned Nemez. I was on board with him the last time by, and it looked like that he was trying everything he could to get the car to actually bite into turn 1. And then when he actually got it to bite, he fought with the wheel all throughout the end of 1 and 2. So these drivers dealing with some pretty ill-handling cars, or maybe they're right at home where they like them to be here at Darlington.
Garrett Conrad, 16th place. One of the drivers has mentioned that with the win in the season opener at Daytona, knew that he was going to be racing for the championship. Just up ahead of him there is the car you were talking about, that 2005 Carl Edwards throwback, David Cabrera. As a matter of fact, Cabrera gonna get the wall there. I remember back when I would listen to NASCAR races on the radio. We didn't have cable or satellite at that time, and one of the first races I actually heard on the radio was Carl Edwards beating Jimmy Johnson to the start-finish line in that photo finish at Atlanta. So that throwback's got some memories for me, no doubt. And up ahead of them, you've got Ryan Shelton. Of course, if you're driving a 99, or in his case a 199, why not throw it back to a guy that was very famous in the 99 machine, the legendary Jeff Burton?
Always a fun time to see some classic 99 schemes. You got one 99 scheme behind, and then you got another 99 scheme in front. So getting our fix of the 99, and I believe it was Jeff Burton. I don't think it was in this scheme, but Jeff Burton, I think, is the only driver on record for leading every single lap in an event, and I think that was at New Hampshire.
Don't remember the year, but yes, it was New Hampshire. Maybe 2001 New Hampshire. I'll have to check back through my notes, find out about that. Now there's been drivers that actually have been, in a way, running throwbacks the entirety of the season. Jake Poulin would be one of them. Oh, as he gets the wall, and David Cabrera gets into him. Of course, he's throwing it back to Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Hellman scheme, and then another car back there.
Whoa, 3 wide.
Out. That's Jordan Worth in the 92. That's, of course, a Stacy Compton throwback that he's run the entirety of the season.
I don't like the way that this Hornet of cars looks right now. Worth and Nemez on back. It's definitely heating up, and there's some contact. That was Waterworth that went to the inside of the racetrack, but he's coming back up on the race, or on the surface. That's a driver that needs a good finish tonight to make it into the playoffs, and he does not want to be in this situation right now.
car that almost got into. Oh, Cabrera pounds the wall. There goes Casey Nemez into the inside wall. Will the caution come out? It will indeed. Nemez, unfortunate place for him as the 138 got really tight off the corner, pounded the wall, and unfortunately for Nemez, he was the buffer that kept the 138 going.
And that will be our third yellow of the event. And man, it was another situation where cars start getting stacked up and they're fighting for control throughout 1 and 2, and it just overflowed, and you could see that coming. But again, I'd say relatively safe. Not a whole lot of drivers were involved, but I don't know. What do you think? The 38 might have been tight there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, as you said, I mean, that was a wad of cars, and so there was a lot of air movement going on there. I think that he definitely got tight off the corner. May have possibly gotten back to the throttle sooner than he would have liked to, but no doubt that car was tight. It was not turning, and it pounded that outside wall, and well, he's going to have to deal with that damage. Casey Nemez with a lot of damage on the front end of his machine that he's going to have to deal with for the remainder of this race. And very interesting, 3 drivers going to stay out. Just about everybody else coming to pit lane for tires. So you talk about the strategies. We've seen this before in past weeks at the 1.5 miles and 2 mile racetracks. When you've got drivers that are on different tire strategies, that's usually where you end up seeing some other caution flags come out.
Absolutely, a lot of drivers with mixed bag of strategies, and right now the ones that have stayed out would be your leader, Malik Ray. He took the lead. Well, he started out front, hasn't looked back. Jake Poulin, surprisingly, he was in that situation with the other drivers, and he stayed out. He wasn't involved in anything, but he was battling quite heavily, and I think that he's overheard us and has decided to come down pit road. He might have been looking for a potential lap lead, but Malik Ray staying out, dash that party. Ryan Naraki also coming down pit road. But a couple of drivers that did not come down pit road would be the driver right behind him. Never mind, he's a lap down. 71.
Yeah, that's 71.
So the only one now that has officially stayed out would be the leader Ray, and I don't know if I like the call.
I mean, you've got at least the track position, you've got the clean air to the nose. I mean, well, here's the thing. I think if you're going to make a pass on somebody here today, you're going to have to probably pull a slide job on that inside line. I don't know if those fresh tires on Garrett Conrad back there, if that's going to be able to get him at least alongside of the 20 machine by the time they get down to the entrance of a corner for him to be able to then get the power down and be able to clear by the time they come off the exit. I mean, right now, Malik Ray is going to force everybody to do something that might be a little bit more uncomfortable to them in order to make a pass. We know that car is fast. The question is how fast when there's a difference of nearly 30 laps between his tires and everybody else.
We'll set you up for what will be our restart. Malik Ray staying out will be the leader. Garrett Conrad, who was running down Ray before the yellow came out, he'll be restarting in the second place position. Tyler Gary will be in third, and then we got TJ Bursk, which will be restarting in fourth. Fifth will be White, Jonathan Oates sixth, Butler seventh, Punkari eighth, Cowden ninth, and Seth Knoll will be rounding out the top 10 for our third restart. Everyone getting gridded up for our restart, and interestingly, Ray has chosen the outside line this time. So he started inside for the beginning. Then the first restart was inside. Second restart, second restart outside. Now this the last restart inside. Now this restart outside. So I think he's testing the waters to see which side is best for if you need to have it later on in the race.
And of course, he's going to have the advantage of accelerating when he wants to. He'd love to have that wider sweeping entry into turn 1. Especially with the older tires now, determine himself in that outside line, not want to run the issue of maybe driving a little too deep into the corner using the inside line and sliding up the racetrack, maybe getting up into the wall and giving up the race lead. So it's going to be interesting to see when he chooses to go this time. He waited very late on the first restart. He went almost instantly on the second restart. Now on the third restart of the day, where is he going to decide to get up through the gears? 9 of Conrad below him, trying to wait. Whoa, little wheel spin there out of Tyler Gary, but looks like at least for the most part, everybody's going to be making it across the start-finish line, pointed in the right direction.
Side by side for second after the restart. White way up the track, and there you go. There's the fresh tires versus the old tires. Ray been caught up immediately after the restart, but nowhere for anybody to go. They're going to fan out down the back straightaway, looking to go potentially 4 wide. Still double file. Inside line for Conrad, and he might be able to pull off the maneuver before the exit of 4, and he will. New leader goes to the 9, and everyone's stacking up behind, though. There's some contact between Ray and Bursk. Oh, look out, guys.
Everybody stacking up. Now they're all going to go to the inside line. Malik Ray on the outside going backwards. Loses 5th. About to lose 6th to Jonathan Oates, who gets to his left rear quarter panel. Now it's Conrad, White, Bursk, Gary, and Dalton Cowden has now cracked the top 5.
Everybody trying to go past Ray as he's on the outside. Stuck as there's double wide behind them between, I believe that's Waterworth and Shelton. Make that, yeah, that'd be Ryan Shelton as they go double file. And be careful, they gotta get around the slower traffic. The way that they're racing right now is making me, is at least making me nervous, but I'm surprised they're able to hold on to it as well as they are. These are some high-class drivers as they're still side-by-side between Shelton and Waterworth.
The corners here at Darlington, when you're racing double wide, it's almost like an accordion. It congests up when you go into the corner, it widens up when you get to the center, and then it narrows once again when you come off corner exit. So these drivers have to be aware of if they are or not clear of a driver, either to their inside or outside, is wadded up from 11th place on back now. Waterworth trying to get around Malik Ray. That's Ryan Shelton just behind. Lucas Palesso, Alex Kolonix there, as well as Cole Freilich. All these drivers trying to make their way around the worn tires on the 20 machine.
There's some contact, it looks like, between Kolonix and make that Rapido. I think there was some contact between them as they're trying to fight their way around. But at the front of the field, we got a battle heating up for the lead of the race as Conrad has been caught up by Parker White and TJ Bursk going down the back straightaway. It's very possible that we could see at least a battle for second place before we see a battle for the lead, as White has not been able to really get away from Bursk, and Bursk hunting down the back end of the 95.
It's been very fast. Saw him make that near 3-wide move. Ooh. Wow, Dalton Cowden again. Man, that car has been loose several times today. Somehow he's been able to keep that thing pointing in the right direction. Here's that battle for second. Door was left open. Parker White on the top. Bursk on the bottom. Could not get the run through the center of 1 and 2, though.
Here comes Gary to try and pick up the pieces from the bobble of the 70. Rocketing down the back straightaway. If you recognize the 70 from anywhere, I don't know if it's official, but this is the thing that I remember the most. If you've seen the movie Herbie Fully Loaded, the main antagonist of that movie would have driven this car. So that might be where you recognize it from. That's where I recognize it from anyway, and it's a interesting throwback. I hadn't thought about that movie in over 15 years, and then all of a sudden, boom, here we go. TJ Bursk.
Right now, that car is looking very, very fast as he tries to jump to the back bumper. Second place, Parker White, Tyler Gary, Dalton Cowden. Got a battle back behind them. That is going to be Jonathan Oates on the top side and Jordan Worth on the inside. Both of these drivers here trying to get that 8th spot, give it to Jordan Worth. I mean, you want to talk about an obscure paint scheme. Jonathan Oates in that 73 is throwing it back to 1994, a car that tried to qualify for the Daytona 500 with Phil Barkdahl and failed to do so. Never made it on the track. I mean, that's pretty cool that you're going to throw it back to a car that never even got a chance to take a green flag in a race.
Yeah, and now we get to see it here, and it's doing very well inside the top 10. We were at the pre-race, we were scratching our heads trying to figure out who this car belonged to, and then we got John up into the booth with us, and we explained it, and once he told us the story, it's a pretty interesting story. If you haven't heard about it, then we don't blame you for not hearing about it, but definitely go read the story behind this paint scheme. It's worthwhile. So cool to see some really obscure schemes in this field, and I am ashamed that it never ran, because it's actually... It's not bad. It's really good, actually.
And actually, you know, up until we end up getting told the story before we came on the air, I've never even heard of Phil Barkdahl. My NASCAR memory doesn't really go way back to those years. And Phil Barkdahl, amazingly enough, had actually had a streak going where he had made the Daytona 500 since 1987. 1887, that would have been quite a streak since 1987, and that 1994 failed to qualify for the 500 was the first time since 87 that he had not made the main event. And how about this scheme here? Lucas Palesel in that 45 talked about the fact that he's trying to point his way into the playoffs, throwing it back, of course, to Carl Long in that familiar green and yellow number 40 that he used to drive.
It's nice to see some of these older skis. You can tell what color. Oh, wow, that was an extreme bobble. I cannot believe he saved that. Between him and Cowden, we've seen some amazing saves tonight. But you can really tell what the color schemes used to be, what the preferred colors were. Back then, everyone preferred the kind of not really gloss, but green and yellows and flat painted cars. Because I mean, back then they were still painted. Everything now is either done via a wrapper. You get the occasional one that's painted with just hand painted so far, but you can tell the craftsmanship in some of these schemes that you couldn't replicate now, or you can replicate easy now because you have technology and such, and that's why we see so much intricate schemes this year, or this in the future. The present now is because we have computers that you can design schemes and you can just get it wrapped onto the car. But back then, hand painting it, you doubled over as a race car driver and an artist sometimes. So it's cool to see some of the older schemes. They look simplistic, but you had to paint a whole car and then drive it. That says a lot for these drivers.
Seth Knoll up here in the 54 machine, running in the 8th position. I apologize, I'm trying to remember back to what this is the throwback is. I want to say it's Cale Yarborough. I'm going to double check myself on that one just to make absolutely certain, but I do believe this is a Cale Yarborough throwback that he has currently running up inside of the top 10.
I believe you're right, only because I think that this scheme is in NASCAR Thunder. Well, it wasn't NASCAR Thunder at the time, it was NASCAR 2005, and I think that this was an unlockable. You could get in that game, and it was Cale Yarborough.
Hamlin threw back to this scheme back in the Xfinity race in 2020. I know that. Wow, Cowden. My goodness.
That was battling.
Can we get a should-be spin counter on the 117? Because I think we're at least up to 3 that I know of. Oh, and now he's going to get himself a Darlington stripe, and that's going to open the door for Jordan Worth to try and get himself up to 6th place.
That might open the door for Knoll instead to pounce on Worth. Worth had to check up to try to avoid running into Cowden. Everyone getting stacked up from Cowden on back through Pancari, so have to keep an eye on them as Shelton is now starting to close in the 199 X-side machine as well.
Nathan Stewart, as we saw some fighting between Kalonix and Palesel for position. Looks like Palesel's kind of moving out of the way, trying to find himself a safe spot. Nate Stewart now up to the 14th position, the driver that is locked into the playoffs on points, throwing it back to Dale Earnhardt Jr., that very familiar scheme he drove back in 2009.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the quintessential Dale Earnhardt schemes. Back when Amp Energy was still a thing, no longer a thing. This was actually his Mountain Dew scheme, however, that he ran alongside with his Amp Energy scheme as well. Another Dale Earnhardt Jr. scheme that is running around in the field right now is the 19 machine. That would be, and I'm trying to see if I can find where he's running on the racetrack right now.
I believe he's out of the race.
He is out of the race.
We didn't get a chance to see that car, unfortunately. Beautiful car, that the Born on This Day throwback.
But another driver that you might will be associated with Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the 32. It's a Steve Park throwback, and you'll know that Steve Park and Dale Jr. were on the same team for quite a couple of years in the early 2000s. So cool throwback to a Steve Park scheme. Although I don't think this is a scheme that was ran while they were teammates.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I think actually the 14 Burger King car that Sean Butler is throwing back to, I believe that actually raced in the Busch series, if I recall correctly. So, which makes sense. You know, a lot of drivers throwing back to Busch series or Nationwide series or Xfinity series schemes, depending on what year it was. And this, of course, the Grand National Series under the FTF banner. But And things are getting wadded up again around the Dalton Cowden machine. That's Pancari now making a move. Shelton just got around him. You've got Gary Waterworth there as well. If you're looking for an update on the drivers that are trying to point their way in right now, none of them are running where they need to be locked into the playoffs via points. Swack is not up inside the top 35. Palesso currently falling back to the 17th position. He needs to be up in the top 10, and Waterworth there in the 12 machine, while he is up just outside the top 10 and 13th, he needs to be up inside of the top 3. The good news for these guys, though, is you've got Garrett Conrad leading this race. Now, Conrad, I believe this is his first start. I'll have to double check on if he's made any previous starts than this, but I know for certain that if he goes to victory lane, it's not going to change anything in terms of a new driver leapfrogging everybody else and making their way up into the playoff grid. So that's the good news right now for those 3 drivers in particular, as well as Tristan Hagenstein, who are trying to point their way into playoff positions, not having to worry about the wild card race in 2 weeks' time at Daytona.
Exactly. So I think the one that affects it the most immediately is Hagenstein. I think he comes into this race as, if I read it correctly, he does not need any, he can't have anyone win a race and then lock their way into the championship, and I think that he would be in via that way, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, right now he holds the final spot in the top 11 of drivers that either are in the points or have won their way into the playoffs.
All right, so regardless of finishing order, I don't know if you were looking at Hagenstein, but Melillo almost did, almost pulled off and his name slipped my mind for some reason. The guy that was on the brink of spinning around. Cowden, yeah. I don't know why.
Got a caution. Tyler Williams in the 34 has gone around on the back straightaway.
And he will, looks like, try to get it going the right way again. He has, driving a throwback Pepsi scheme. Memory doesn't serve me who that belongs to, but what happened here? Oh, we also have a couple other drivers. I think Cabrera might have been involved in it as well as Freilich is slow.
Back and see if we can find out what exactly happened there to David Cabrera. There you see him already spun out. Let's go back a little bit further. See if we can pinpoint. He was up and into the wall. Oh, wow. There really was no contact. I can't tell who that was behind him. I don't really think he made contact with, I think that was Kyle Lawrence Short in the 51. He was literally off the throttle trying to allow Tyler Williams to gather it back up. Williams then goes up into the outside wall, overcorrects it back into the inside wall.
He did get a little help on the backstretch, though. He did start losing the car in turn 2, and then, yeah, just a slight little bump from the Short behind, and that sent him up into the outside wall. It wasn't a big bump either. It was the smallest of contact, and then that's what sent him around. Multi-car incident. I believe that is an automatic yellow, regardless of the outcome of where the drivers end up on the racetrack. So, only technically a one-car incident with a little bit of assistance from another car, but a lot of heavy damage on that 34 machine.
Oh, it's interesting. I was kind of perplexed by that Pepsi scheme that he was driving as well. Did not recognize it at all. Now, I'm not certain if that was from this year or from the year prior, but it is a throwback. Well, actually, let me get back to you on that, because I actually just noticed that it is a throwback to an actual scheme. So let me just go back and a little bit more research on that one there, find out who exactly it was a throwback to. But while I'm doing that, let you guys know we were talking about Melillo having that great save and Ryan Naraki in the 0-2 staying out this extra lap. Haven't talked about the wild card race just yet. So how it works with the playoffs this season, 11 drivers are going to lock themselves in either through wins or through points. We've kind of beaten that horse to death so far here in the first half of this race. But as far as that wild card spot goes, there's still one final 12th position that is available in the upcoming playoff grid. 5 drivers are going to be battling for that. The drivers that theoretically come into this race 12th through 16th in the standings. Those drivers currently would be Ryan Araki, Cosmin Ishinoshu, Justin Melillo, Ethan Corder, and Evan Rice. Naraki, Cosmin, and Malello, they are right now locked into the wild card. They know they will battle for that final spot. Ethan Corder needs 12 spots to lock himself in, and I do not think he took the green flag here tonight. No, he did not. He is not in the field. And Evan Rice, we haven't seen him in an FTF Grand National Series grid for at least 3 weeks to my knowledge. He didn't run Bathurst, he didn't run Michigan. For those guys, they need to make sure that there's no new winner to be able to lock themselves in. But I was kind of wondering coming into this as well, with Rice not in the field here tonight, what the situation is going to be there. I mean, if he doesn't show in 2 weeks' time at Daytona, is it just 4 drivers that are going to be battling for that final spot? If Ethan Corder isn't there, is it just 3 drivers battling for the final spot? We're going to have to wait and see, but I'll tell you what, that's 3 teammates out of Speed Incorporated then that would be battling for the final spot in Rocky, Cosmin Shinoshu, and Justin Malello, so that would be really interesting.
It's going to be an awkward team meeting at the end of the race for whoever wins the race. That it could come down to that, which is interesting when you have teammates that'll battle it out, and 3 drivers that in their own right do very well in the series and have battled for the final spot in the playoffs. So that would be it would be fun to watch, as well as something else we could touch on as well, as we're still under pacing. We've got a couple more, at least one more. Nope, we're going to green this time by. So quick note, we also have a few drivers that can win their way into the playoffs and pass the wild card. Notably, one of them is Casey Nemez, and Casey Nemez was involved in a lot of shenanigan earlier on with the wad up of cars. So for some of these drivers trying to make their way into the playoffs without having to go through the roulette wheel of Daytona, this could be the last shot. Well, this is the last shot. They've got Nemez, Kyle Short, Andy Margo, Jack Painter, and Richard Jameson that I believe are the only drivers that can win their way into the playoffs.
Right now, the highest of those is Jack Painter, who will restart in row 7 in the 13th position. Lawrence Short currently off the lead lap. Nemez towards the rear of the field, as is Rich Jameson. Green flag back in the air. Got a car that ducked down to the inside. I think that might have been, I thought that was Seth Noel, but actually no, it's another car back there. Not sure who it was. Probably getting out of the way of the race leaders, as that top 5, 6, 7 all get themselves again to single file. These guys have done a great job. Despite that one time we had that stack up with all the wheel spin, for the most part, these guys have done a great job of getting from double file to single file in a big hurry, pretty much by the time we get out of the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, you got a lot of room in order to give other drivers some space to get to single file. You've got pretty much an entire concrete surface in order to do it, as we have a pass for position, make that Burst passing Butler for this 4th position. He's actually closed right up onto Gary now to try and take the 3rd position away. He's going to try and duck to the inside going into 3. Oh, a late minute dive into turn 3. Going to wash up the track just a little bit, but is not going to have the run coming out of 4. Have to try to reset the move into turn 1 if he can, but I think he's lost all momentum.
And Nate Stewart back there taking a look on a pass for Nathan Rabideau, and got Zach Hudson trying to make a move there. Actually, I just realized that Cosmin Shinoshu is not in the field here tonight. I thought he was because I saw that 84 car out there, but that's actually Hudson in that machine. So now that kind of throws into question about Cosmin's chances of being in that wild card battle at Daytona, as one driver that loved the fact that caution came out has to be 13th place running Malik Ray, because as we saw, he played the strategy game, elected to stay out under the last caution, and it dropped him back outside of the top 25. He now is up inside the top 15, trying to make forward progress. And let's kind of think about the long con here as well, Anthony, because with not coming to pit road there under that second caution when most everybody else did, I would have to assume that that 20 team would have an extra set of tires waiting for them that they could take on if they so chose late on in this race.
Yeah, especially if it comes down to a green-white checkered or a late race yellow that won't necessarily be a green-white checkered, but you'll have that extra set of tires. And this is something that was talked about pretty much in every series that we've been able to call, is when you go to a track where, number one, you have a track that has high rep of killing tires, and then you have another a factor of the high temperatures coming into this race, as these tires don't like high temps no matter where you go, and here it's especially noticeable. Tracks like this, with the reputation it has for being the lady too tough to tame, or the track too tough to tame, lady in black, all that. So you have all these factors, and why not try to go to the back of the field under a strategic call and have that set later on? It could be the difference. You saw the difference of speed that everyone had versus Ray at the end of that yellow flag period, where everyone just blew on by him. So imagine that, but one car has the advantage. That is basically a race winner. That's a race winning strategy if that comes down to it. If it doesn't come down to it, at least you can say he tried, but he is definitely did a good job of making up ground under these last few runs, as he's up to 12th now, getting past Rabideau, who is now under fire from Zach Hudson, trying to get around him as well.
The bobble there off of turn 2 from Ryan Shelton. That opened up the door for Nate Stewart to take a look to the inside. There's Malik Ray just behind, and Stewart will complete the pass around the 199, so move him up into the top 10 for the first time today. Nate Stewart starting this race from the 41st position. He's picked up 31 spots since the drop of the green flag. It's taken him nearly half the race to get up into the top 10, but he's here now.
And he is making a charge right now. Both him and Ray are charging up through the field. I would dare say that these two are probably a couple of the fastest cars in the racetrack. You got a couple of drivers in front of them that are stacked in front. That'd be Jonathan Oates and Brett Pancari. If you look down through the field, some of these drivers that are in a kind of a precarious position in order to get into the playoffs, one of them being Ryan Araki, which I'm looking and trying to find where he's at. I think he's retired from the race, so he will be one driver not be able to get a win tonight in order to lock himself into the playoffs, so he will have to go through the wild card. I believe that's actually can't point his way into the playoffs, so he is locked into the wild card race, so at least he will be able to make it. I think we touched on that as well. Casey Nemez, one of those drivers that was trying to make his way on points or a win. He's running right now 34th with a heavily damaged car. It looks like that might be it for him. He will have to go through the wild card race as well. Andy Margot is a similar situation. He's running in 32nd, so his hopes of winning this race with a wounded race car as well is not looking too well either, but that is a nice looking scheme that he's got running on that 48 machine.
Definitely is, as looks like we had some smoke on the back straightaway, and I'm not 100% certain, but I'm noticing that Ryan Naraki has taken his 0-2 behind the wall. I don't know if maybe he parked it there on the back straightaway or if he spun the back straight to bring out a caution, but 0-2 is no longer on my telemetry. And for Andy Margot there, that's of course the throwback to Jimmy Spencer in that Winston Noble machine that he drove back in the day, the number 23. By the way, we ended up having that caution come out with Tyler Williams. I told you that car was not one that I recognized. The mystery is solved. This is a throwback to the number 34 that Kevin Schwartz drove in the NASCAR Australia series. So how about that, going a little international with the throwback schemes here tonight?
Now that, you want to talk about an obscure scheme, that is a very obscure scheme. I would not have... I am not very familiar with that series. I didn't know that series existed until just
Didn't
right
either.
now.
That's
Wow.
what I love about this, though. That's what I love about the theme races, especially the throwback races, because even the commentators go to school and learn something new.
Absolutely. I'm learning about schemes that I didn't know existed from other series. Just learned another series. We obviously had that one of the driver that didn't make it into the Daytona race. There's a lot of stories behind these schemes, and that's something that I don't think that we talk about it, but I don't think that people really dive deep into it. But there's stories behind these paint schemes, and they're not just fun schemes to look at. And when you start digging into the stories behind some of these schemes, you really get to know the drivers that had them on their cars, how they became on the car, like what was that car known for, was that driver known for, where did they run it, why did they run it there, and then you start digging in, you find some really cool stuff when you dig into. So I'm a nerd. I'm such a nerd for schemes and cars and the stories behind different, why they did this, why they did that. It's always this race specifically for NASCAR, but even like you go to say like the Goodwood Festival of Speed, or even the it wasn't really a throwback race, but it was the Le Mans Legends race that was earlier today, where they had some of the older cars that was running on the racetrack during an actual race. It wasn't just a show; it was them actually running at speed. So you got to see like the Bentley Speed 8 and all that. It was so much fun to see all these cars running around the track, and getting to know the stories behind the cars and getting to know the stories behind the drivers who drove.
Absolutely. Well, we saw that Lucas Palesso is driving a throwback to Carl Long. Carl Long getting quite a bit of love here tonight. There's Lane Tidwell in the 040, also with a Carl Long throwback, and we just saw getting into the wall there Victor Valle. Now, he's driving the number 83. It is the silver Red Bull machine, but it's on a Ford. I think this would be a throwback to Brian Vickers' 2007, or well, not, actually it wouldn't be Brian Vickers, because it would be Brian Vickers, because Vickers had the silver and Casey Kane had the blue on his Ford. That's right. So I believe this is a Brian Vickers throwback on the Red Bull car.
It might have been a Scott Speed throwback as well.
Oh, that's true too. Yep.
Because there was a time where Red Bull was bouncing around. They had the 83 and they had the 4 with Casey Kane and Vickers, but then they also had Scott Speed that drove the 80. Well, there was an 82, but I don't know if it was Scott Speed. There was an 84 as well.
It was Allmendinger. I think Speed was the 82.
Right. So this is either. It's not familiar. I don't think that this scheme was ever ran. I think this is a modified scheme of what it was actually ran. However, it is alluding to the Red Bull era when around 2007 is when they made their debut. So 2007. I
believe so. Yep.
2007 through 2000. When did they exit the sport?
I believe 2007 was the year. I think I actually got my years wrong. I think 2007 was when they had Vickers in the 83 and Allmendinger in the 84. So it would have probably been 2008 or 2009 when Vickers would have been driving the silver Red Bull car, because I believe both the Red Bull cars were blue in 2007.
I can tell you who drove the 82. I actually have a die-cast of the 82. Let me look. Actually, forget what I said. That's the 83.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the 82 was Scott Speed. I think you were right on that.
That was Scott Speed. Yeah. I have a Vickers die-cast with the 83. But yeah. So, jumping into the lore of Red Bull in NASCAR, that's long story short, this is a Red Bull throwback scheme. Full stop.
This is yes, that much we can tell you, as we battle with the inner demons of wishing that we knew more about NASCAR paint schemes.
Whoa! Speaking of somebody making a bold move, did you see on the inside line there someone making a duck out of the way? That was Anderson that's letting all the faster cars by. That car does not look very well in the way of speed. I don't know if there's something wrong with it. He just hasn't been. Looks like something's knocked out of line in the suspension department.
We focused on him a moment ago, and I wondered if maybe he had made an unscheduled pit stop or something, but no, he was last on pit road about 20 laps ago. So yeah, must have gotten up into the wall and something very much so amiss on that machine. He is now off the lead lap, running in the 34th position. He's one of 2 drivers off the lead lap. Kyle Lawrence short the other one. Mentioned about Ryan Araki in the garage area. The garage area continues to fill up here as we continue to log green flag laps. Cole Freilich is out of the race. Devin Mistak, who started this race from pit road, fell a lap down early, got the lucky dog under the first caution, but then fell another 4 laps down with an unscheduled stop. He's out of the race in 38th. And just recently, the 84 of Kyler Wynn came to pit lane and brought it to the garage area. So we right now have a total of 8 drivers who have succumbed to the Lady in Black, and we've still got 65 laps to go.
We've got an epic battle going on for the 3rd place spot right now. Butler just getting by Tyler Gary to put him back to 4th place after Gary almost lost the car coming out of turn 3 the last time by. Now we're working on to another lap. TJ Bursk trying to get around as well. That 26 not doing so hot in the last couple of laps. It's almost kind of reminiscent of some of the other drivers that we've seen earlier on having problems with handling the car late into a run. In fact, here comes Burst to the inside trying to put the 26 behind him. will do it, I say, as a burst of speed comes on the outside line. They're still side by side down the front straightaway, but looks like Gary's going to have the run going into turn 1. So another setup by Burst, and this is going to be great for Malik Gray because he's right behind these guys running by himself, and he might be waiting to pick up the pieces.
He's running in the 6th position as Gary way sideways there through turn 2. But Malik Gray running by himself in 6th place just ran the 2nd fastest lap that time, only to Parker White. And he was about a 1/10 of a second quicker than race leader Garrett Conrad. So keep an eye on that 20 machine as he tries to work his way back up to the front, trying to go coast to coast here at Darlington. Now, these guys are about maybe 2 laps away from when they will be turning their 30th circuit on these set of tires. Question is, I mean, I would assume they cannot make it the remaining 60 laps on what they've got in the tank. When do we start seeing those pit stops? Because I guarantee you every single one of them is screaming for fresh rubber.
We've got one car that just dove onto pit road. I don't know who that is. There's a red machine. If you're Tyler Gary, you want to do it now because he almost snapped and hit the wall going out of turn 2 the last time around. And now Malik Gray's been able to get around him. I would be starting thinking about it now, the way that these cars are starting to handle for sure. And if you, I mean, look no further than Tyler Gary is the last result. Going down the inside now, though, is Malik Gray trying to pass TJ Bursk. He certainly does not look like he needs tires, and I would dare say he might want to stretch his out. You can go. What was he on? About a 50 or so lap stint before he actually got tires. So
about 30 laps.
About 30? Okay, well, it was 30 when he stayed out, and then he ran another green flag run, so...
Oh, then yeah, then about 50 laps or so then. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, you can go 50, but you definitely probably shouldn't go 50 if you don't want your car to snap around on you. We do have a number of drivers hitting pit road, though.
Yeah, we saw Justin Malello was just on pit lane, and a couple of cars coming off pit road. The aforementioned Malello, that's also Lane Tidwell coming out just ahead of him. Actually, no correction. Tidwell's coming to pit road this time, so he must have had a moment there out of turn 2 because he was very low coming onto the back straightaway. And now he's going to come down to the attention of his pit crew, pitting from around the 23rd position. We're still yet to see any of our front runners come to pit lane, as Kyle Lawrence Short just made a pit stop about a lap ago as well, albeit he was already a lap down. Malello lost 2 laps there with his green flag pit stop, so it's going to get to the point where drivers are going to be making these pit stops, and then they are going to hope, against all hope, that the green flag remains out, so that way they'll be able to cycle back around on the lead lap.
I wonder if that's influencing some of these drivers' decisions to not pit right now, given the fact that we've seen some tremendous saves, but all it takes is one mistake to bring out a yellow, so they might be trying to play the waiting game to see what plays out.
I would not be against that strategy, to be perfectly honest, because we know that each lap they tick away, that rear end grip continues to get worse and worse, and more and more drivers with sparks flaring off the right sides, getting up into that wall, getting that famed Darlington stripe, and there's certain tracks where you can hit the wall, bounce off, you're fine. Darlington is one of those tracks. You go up into the wall, it sucks you in. It will not let you go, and so you want to turn that car hard to the left to get off of it. That's usually where we end up seeing those spins take place.
It's definitely got a magnetic personality at this racetrack for the wall. You know, I've often wondered if they should give out awards for getting a Darlington stripe, but then I would.
Everybody would have an award.
Yeah, I stopped myself in saying that because then it'd be like a participation award for these drivers. You participated in the Darlington race. Here's your prize. I've been.
Gonna say, how about the guy sneaking his way up there? I was just noticing him there in the back half of our screen, Andrew Schwartz. Again, we say this week after week. This is classic Andrew Schwartz. Doesn't do that well in qualifying. Starts mid-pack, rear of the field. He started 26th here tonight. And again, it's MO. Slowly, methodically works his way to the front. Right now, just outside the top 10 in the 11th position.
Yeah, he's kind of consistent in the sense that he's in control of his own race every single time we see him run around the track, and that comes with a couple of exceptions when some things might not go the way it was intended, but He's very controlled in that 67 right now. One of the only drivers that I've seen so far tonight not have a catastrophic save. That's not to say he hasn't. I haven't seen it. Even last
We got
week.
a spin. Straight away, Tyler Lennon has gone around. Caution's out for the 5th time today.
And that was the good move for all these drivers that were thinking about pitting. That probably saved them. Now, this is also good for the drivers that had just pitted, because some of them will be able to stay out and get their laps back via a waiver round. So I think that Lennon was a single car spin. There certainly doesn't seem like anyone else was involved.
That's Rich Jameson just behind him that does not make contact. Yeah, Tyler Lennon was in trouble by the time he even got to the center of the corner. That thing was wanting to snap around. He was trying to save it, couldn't do it. I'll tell you what a place for that spin to take place, because that's your race leaders that were just coming into view right there. So might have been a little bit of a heart-stopping moment for Conrad, White and company.
I'll give credit to Lennon as well. I don't think he made contact with the wall either. I think he was, if he did, it was slightly. But he did get it stopped before he hit the inside barrier. So, he was damaged going into it. He's not as damaged coming out of it, but still not a good situation for Lennon, as everybody and their relatives has hit the pit road. And you could sense it at the end of that green flag run that they were desperate for any excuse to come down pit road.
Desperate is the word. Feeding time at the zoo for these drivers here, as everyone on the lead lap is going to come down, take the opportunity to put on those 4 fresh Goodyears. Looks like Casey Nemez may be the lucky dog driver here under this caution. Either him or AJ Henderson. Will double check on that one and get back to you on who indeed the driver is. See about Malik Ray having this number 1 pit stall, if he'll gain some spots, but he will not get the race lead off pit road. That will be Conrad. Parker White comes out in 2nd, and Malik Ray will jump up a couple spots. I believe he was 6th when the caution came out. He's going to be restarted in 3rd with Tyler Gary and Sean Butler, the top 5 coming off of pit lane. Folks, just want to remind you as well that if you plan on tuning into the FTF Cup Series race tomorrow on bottom split, that race will not be happening with Hurricane Henry coming up the coast here in the Northeast on Sunday. A number of drivers and staff members are expecting to be affected by the path of the storm, and so the schedule's been updated, and there will not be a race tomorrow. It will be rescheduled for a later date. So once again, the FTF Cup Series race will not be running tomorrow on bottom split.
As they run right now, working I believe our 5th caution of the event. So give you a little bit up to speed of what's happened so far in the race. It was pretty uneventful first half of the race. Well, first few laps of the races. Malik Ray got out in front and basically led for the first few laps. We had a spinner a few laps into the run, caused the yellow flag to come out, and then we had a stack up that happened that basically caught every driver out on the second restart, and that stacked the field up, and we had a few spinners to the inside that brought out our second yellow. Green flag then for another few 30 to 40 laps, and then we had another spinner that brought out, we had another spinner that brought out a yellow flag there. Everyone came down and got fresh tires, and then our longest green flag run so far, just coming off the heels of that, and then the spin down the back straightaway of the 0-4 has ended up with us under caution for the 5th time tonight. Conrad has been leading the way and has continued to lead since he took the lead after Malik Ray stayed out that 3rd time by and got freight trained by every driver and down, falling outside the top 25. But he's made his way back into 3rd place, as Seth alluded to. Parker White will be lining up 2nd place as they run, and they should be lining up for the restart here in a moment. There looks like there is a bit of confusion with how they're lining up, though, as Ray has elected the outside line, which moves, or make that White elected the outside line, which moves Malik Ray up into a 2nd place position.
bear in mind, if you'll notice that when the lights go out top the pace car, they get to those hash marks there entering into turn 1. That first hash mark is their choose cone here tonight, and they have the opportunity to choose which lane they want to be in. So Parker White giving up the opportunity to be on the front row, elects to be in the second row on the top side behind Conrad. Malik Ray says, thank you very much. I'll take that inside line there. So that's the choose cone rule and how they get themselves lined up for the restarts. The green flag back in the air. 50 laps remaining, now 49.
I was skeptical of that decision on White until I remember that the outside line on the restart's the preferred line. He gets in front of Ray, slots back into second place. Ray now battling with Gary, trying to get away from him, although all over the back bumper is the 26, trying to get to the inside. Or rather the outside. You really want to be on the outside around this racetrack, but everyone's single filing out yet again. And we continue with the theme of everyone minding their P's and Q's at a restart, as behind we got a battle between Bursk and Butler. Butler fell back quite a bit under that last caution, went from 3rd to 6th, now trying to get back up, but not enough to get around Bursk.
Saw Nate Stewart tuck in line in 15th. Butler tucks back in line behind Bursk. Single file all the way back through the top 20 as Garrett Conrad continues to show the way. A little smoke lingering there I just saw in turn 3. Don't know where that was from. Might have been a driver possibly up and into the outside wall, but no caution coming out. And you talked about the fact that just before that 5th caution came out, Anthony, was our longest green flag run of the race. Now, with less than 50 to go, we'd consider this the home stretch. You're going to see drivers get even more aggressive at this point in time. We may end up seeing those late race yellows that we're accustomed to at Darlington.
And we could see more than that. We could see some drivers trying to make their way through the field that has been kind of running around midfield, the back of the pack, all race long. We were talking about Andrew Schwartz earlier before the yellow came out. He's fallen back to 16th under that last caution, so trying to make his way back through the field. I was going to say, before we had that spin by Lanning, Andrew Schwartz, even last week at Bathurst, he was able to, again, start towards the back of the pack and make his way up into a top 10 spot by the time the race was over. So it seems like no matter what track he goes to, he's able to put that 67 where he needs to in order to get a decent finish out of an interesting starting position.
Be back from Ryan Doucette to Jordan Worth. This is the ongoing battle for the 9th position. You know, we told the story about Jonathan Oates throwing back to a car that tried to qualify for the Daytona 500 and was unable to. I want to give a shout out to a throwback that's not in the field here. We ended up having more than 43 drivers try to qualify for tonight's Motorsports Drop 250. So obviously, unfortunately, some drivers had to go home. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, but Bo Betcher was going to be piloting the number 20 machine here tonight, the 020 machine, I should say, and he was going to be throwing it back to Elton Sawyer's 1995 Hooterade machine. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that car on the grid here this evening, but he showed up here tonight, tried to qualify us, so I want to give that car, that throwback, a little bit of love here this evening.
As we run, it's been a while since I've been a part of a race that they had a lot of drivers try to get into the field, and it's almost, it's hard when you try to qualify into a race and you get sent home. That happens in the Indy 500 quite a bit, where a lot of drivers try to make their way in on speed, and a lot of them have to get sent home. Most famously, I believe Fernando Alonso was one of the drivers that didn't qualify for that event one year and ended up having to pack up and head home, and that was big news. So it's always a shame to see drivers that come in with high hopes and just miss out. I'm talking, he just missed out on making the race under qualifying. It was a matter of tenths that he missed the main event. So it gets competitive throughout the entire field. You see the field get spread out, but don't be confused. A lot of these drivers, they may not be as fast as some of the top runners, but they are still competitive in their own rights. And as you see, a lot of them, looking at Rich Jameson right now, running alongside of a bunch of pack of drivers. This fact, there's a driver that might have just stacked the field up. I think that was Victor Valley. That wasn't Valley. That was Tyler Williams. That was weaving down the back straightaway. Almost collected a host of drivers going down the backfield, but don't count out the mid and the mid pack and backwards, as they're still competitive. And I say that, and there's still a lot of things going on, and this one does involve Victor Valley.
That is the lap machine of, I believe, Robert Dorman, yes it is, who got into the back of Victor Valley. Now Dorman is the first car one lap down in 29th place, and the problem is if he were to make contact and spun the 83 around, he'd be responsible for the caution and would be ineligible for the free pass. So this call there is Valley running on the lead lap in 21st, and all of a sudden Dorman ducks his car way down to the inside line there, going into turn 1, might be just getting out of the way of these race leaders and trying to find himself a safe place to be. We saw just moments ago we were focused on the 22 of Jack Painter running in the 20th position. So right now it looks like Matthew Zwack, Lucas Palesso, Gary Waterworth, Tristan Hagenstein, their chances of making it into that top 11, into that playoff grid looking very good because of those drivers that were in the win and you're in situation. And that was Rabideau up into the wall. Jack Painter now up to 19th is the highest of the drivers that would have fit that scenario. So does not look like we're going to have a last-minute winner here in the regular season. I would say that those 4 drivers that came in hoping to point their way into the playoffs, they are safe as things currently run.
And as things currently run as well, I noticed a few drivers that were running at the front of the field earlier in the race have now fallen back quite a bit. Dalton Cowden, we were talking about him quite a bit, of making those fantastic saves inside the top 10. Well, now he's in 22nd place and with a lot of rear end damage, and I'm struggling to find out where he would have gotten this because this is left side rear damage. So someone might have run into him and that's why he's slow, but interesting to see that the 17 is so far back considering he was so far forward earlier.
There's a lot of leagues that we do during the course of the week that have that fast repair option. Here in the Grand National Series for FTF, they don't have that. So any damage drivers get, even if it's in turn 1, lap 1, they have to deal with it for the remainder of the race. And so you're talking about that damage that Dalton Cowden would have sustained. That would certainly affect the handling of the race car for the remainder of this one. I'm surprised then why he would not be up here as competitive as we saw him earlier on in this race. Got a couple of drivers that keep taking some looks to make some passes. Sean Butler keeps taking a peek to the inside of TJ Burke. I keep seeing further back Jordan Worth trying to make a move there on Seth Knoll, but people take a look, but they don't really fully commit because it just doesn't seem like there's enough grip down there on that inside line to be able to get back to the throttle and complete that pass, especially as these tires continue to wear lap after lap.
Some of these drivers might also be thinking long game. We're within the window that you could potentially make it to the end of this race without another stop. Obviously that Malik Ray was able to stretch it out the amount of laps that we still have yet to run in this race, so it is possible your fuel will hold up. The tires is what you're concerned about, so these drivers might be shaving their tires, trying to hold on to the car more conservatively so that they have something at the end of the run to fight for, because this could potentially go green the rest of the way. I'm going to say that with the pretense that it's unlikely the way that we've been seeing these cars run late in the run, the way that the tires get affected, the way the cars start bobbing all around the racetrack and snap around on these drivers at no fault of the driver's own. It's just the car becomes ill handling. So I don't know if that will happen, but if it does, then these drivers definitely want to have enough hardware to battle if they need to.
Far though, Garrett Conrad has been able to keep about a car length, sometimes it's been a car length and a half back to Parker White. Malik Ray, who's now on even tires with the rest of the field, he rides in that 3rd position with Gary in 4th, and again Sean Butler trying to take that 5th position away from TJ Bursk, but Darlington's a momentum track, much like Michigan was the track that we were at a couple of weeks ago. The last thing you want to do, try making a move on somebody, either get up into the wall or have to bail way out of the throttle, because look behind him, you've got Kalonix, Ryan Doucette, Jordan Worth. If that 32 gets a little squirrely and he has to bail out of the throttle, they're going to be on his back bumper and they're going to blow right on by him.
How about Alex Kalonix as well? He was running in the midfield and now he's found his way into the top 10. The fantastic drive for the 222 car coming into the later half of the race. He's also brought Doucette with him. Now, both these drivers were running outside the top 10 a few laps ago and now have a very good chance of being competitive at the end of this one, although it seems like the Kalonix car might not be in the best of ways. He's struggling through turn 3 and 4 mostly, throughout 1 and 2, trying to hold onto it as well, but that car is definitely set up more for the Well, that car definitely looks like it feels better through 1 and 2 as the 77 keeps hounding the back end.
A little loose there, it looked like, out of turn 2. Ryan Doucette still putting the pressure there. A couple of Mustangs duking it out for that 7th position. A little bit further back, a driver that was up towards the top 10 and now has faded back to 12th place. That's Jonathan Oates, and that might be a reason right there. Saw him rather squirrely out of turn 2. The handling on that machine starting to go away. Jonathan Oates, he's really looking forward to this checkered flag, though, because he's one of 3 drivers that run full-time in the Grand National Series that's gone to victory lane. As the points leader, he's going to reap in some very valuable playoff points as well for winning the regular season championship. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of a gap he's got over the rest of his competition when we get to Daytona in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, there's a lot of storylines going into Daytona, so it's good. Like you said, it's going to be fun to see how these drivers take what they know from this track and put it in Daytona. Although you can't really compare those two tracks together, but once we get to Daytona, that's where a lot of these drivers are going to have to kind of readjust their mind a little bit. I mean, it's going to be a lot easier than I shouldn't say easier. It's going to be you have a lot more of a chance, given it's a restrictor plate race, that you'll be able to try to put your car where you need to have it in order to make some moves happen. Obviously, being the wild card race, I don't know if there's going to be as many cars in the field for it. I think that they're going to run with a limited field is what I'm understanding, so you won't have to have that much in the way of obstruction, but certainly going to be an interesting one to watch these drivers try to duke it out. It's one of the races that's kind of obscure to me. I'm not sure, does it count as a regular season race, or is it just a wild card race?
It's just, well, there's going to be apparently 2 races, and I'm not necessarily certain when this wild card race is going to take place. It's taking place at Daytona, but I don't know if it's going to be taking place either in the upcoming off week maybe, or just before we take the green flag to start the playoffs in 2 weeks' time at Daytona. I don't know where the scheduling is for said wild card race, but it's going to be a race all its own, I guess, between the 5 drivers that are 12th and 16th in the point standings at the conclusion of this one, and they will then get that 12th and final spot and then take the green flag as a playoff contender when we get to Daytona for the Motorsports Drop 250.
Might be able to make some friends and enemies for the main race. Think about it this way: if you make it through the wild card race into the championship, number one, that's great, but you've also got some drive time that you can apply to the main race as well. You might also figure out, of those 5 drivers, who you're willing to work with.
Look at a spin! That's Tyler Leahy again, or Tyler Lennon, I'm sorry, right in front of the leaders off of turn 4, and the caution is going to fly.
And again, it was a solo out of turn 4 this time, and that one definitely had some help, courtesy of the 73 of Nemez.
Saw it right there. We'll go back a little bit further, see how that all culminated. Ooh. And then threw a little bit of a block there into turn 3, and I'm not necessarily certain that Nemez appreciated that. Really seemed to drive to the left rear quarter panel of Lennon with some purpose, and again, second time that Lennon has a spin, and there's your race leaders coming out of turn 4. So the race leaders entering into the vicinity of the smoke twice now in the last 2 cautions.
If you had asked these drivers what the thing that they would have seen the most in this race was, and you told them the side of the 04, I don't think they would have believed you. But tonight, they have seen the side of the 04 more times than not. So here we go. Speaking of, Lennon is making his way through the field trying to catch the pace car. He's actually going around it. This is the time to pit. If you pit now, then you're set for the end of the race. Now, bear in mind, Malik Ray has got that extra set that he can use late in the run as everyone hits pit road. At some point, he did get around Parker White. We forgot to mention that, but he's moved into second place. Can Conrad maintain the lead through this cycle of stops? Everyone trying to hit their mark. We're going to follow the leader, Conrad, and we're going to keep tabs on Malik Ray as they share spots close together. Question is, who's going to have the faster stop? Last time by, it was certainly Ray that had the faster stop, but he was too far back to make much ground on the leader. Both hit their box, both starting their service. Is Conrad even taking tires? Yes, he is.
He is.
Who gets out first? Conrad is going to do it. So Conrad gets out.
Wow.
Oh, whoa. But behind them, Bursk with a fast stop is going to get third place. Tyler Gary's going to move up into fourth, and Parker White falls to fifth.
Losing 2 more spots there is Parker White. After he dropped from second to third just before that caution came out. But Conrad, oh, look out. Casey Nemez spun out just ahead of the leaders. What was that about?
Maybe he put too much power down. I mean, he was one of the drivers that were. It's one of the drivers that had the damage from earlier.
Oh, wait a minute. 0-4 of Lennon coming up here. Let's watch these two. Nemez feels something's come. Oh, boy. Little payback.
A little extracurricular activity.
I wondered about that. I wasn't certain, but I wondered with that 73 spun around there. Maybe, just maybe, Tyler Lennon would have been in the vicinity, and it looks like Lennon's now gone to the garage area, been told by race control that he's done for the night, one or the other, but he's in the garage area now.
That was undoubtedly payback on the part of Lennon. That might, yeah, like you said, that might have been resulting in a penalty, but honestly, can you blame him? I mean, with all fairness, and I mean, Nemez did make the kind. I don't know if that was intentional, though. I honestly don't think it was. I think that was it just 2 cars meeting at the same part of the racetrack. And I've always had this saying that the fastest line around a racetrack just so happens to be where other cars are. So it might have been the case there. But Nemez continues to be. I think he is on the lead lap. He might be taking the wave around here. So
I think he's taking the wave around. Yeah, I think the lucky dog, if I'm not mistaken, under this caution was the 48, Andy Margot.
So with that being said, Nemez and Dorman will both be on the lead lap once they take the wave around. A couple. The lights are still on the pace car. They might be trying to clean off the back straightaway after the bit of contact between the 73 and the 04. But as they run now within 20 laps to go, we'll be within 20 laps to go next time by. Seth, with the way that they've been running late in the race, we haven't seen multi-car crashes that much tonight, but I have a feeling that we might start seeing, some. And the reason I say that is it's crunch time. It's go time. You have only got 20 laps left, and if you're Conrad, you want to hold off Malik Ray as much as possible. How much do you want to bet that when it gets within 10 laps to go that some of these drivers are going to be pushing the issue with how much you can sail a car into these turns and try to make passes happen? Because I mean, we've seen it time after time at Darlington. The track becomes much thinner than it is under normal race conditions.
Well, you saw the contact and the sheet metal exchange there between Nemez and Lennon. That was at pace. That was at 70 miles per hour. We're going to be seeing that at about twice that speed, 140 to 170 miles per hour, depending on where it takes place on the racetrack as we get closer to the end of this race. The main reason is as well, if you think about it, what are the options these drivers have? Everybody, for the most part, migrates up to that outside wall. So if you're going to get somebody out of the way, you're going to have to bump them up into the wall. Hope they get stuck there, cross them over. Either that, or you're going to have to try and dive bomb it to the inside and hope you clear them on corner exit. There's not a whole lot of options available to these drivers with just how narrow this racetrack is. And so these guys are going to have that mentality of push comes to shove. And look at the guys we've got here up towards the front as well. Conrad, Gary, White, Ray, Bursk, Kolonix. What do these guys all have in common? None of them are battling for a playoff spot. Every single one of these guys, when they took the green flag to start this race, they're eyeing just one thing, and that's the checkered flag.
Set it up for you for this restart. We got Conrad, Gary, Ray, White, Bursk, Kolonix, Butler, Doucette, Worth, and Schwartz has now made his way into the top 10 as the safety car peels off pit road. Can Gary get a good restart on the inside line? Can Michael or Malik Ray get back to the lead? Can Garrett Conrad hold on to this lead? About to find out. Green flag back in the air, and the 9 car wasn't waiting around, but they're stacking up.
And there's a big stack up. Sean Butler in the 32 was the first one I saw go around. Everybody else, I think, may have been able to snake their way through the incident, but the caution immediately out, and that's a driver in Sean Butler who's been up in the top 10 all day. Just like that, he drops outside the top 25.
He's got quite a bit of rear end damage to boot as well. I think what happened was, I don't think he got going. I think, well, he did. I think he ran into the back of the 73, I think. Make that the 70 of Bursk.
So look at it here as I got into the back of Bursk, and the car behind him would have been, I believe, the 92 of Jordan Worth. It's a stack up there, and nothing that any of these guys could do.
It's a slow spin down to the inside. Everyone piled in that inside line. There are quite a few drivers that did pile into this, unfortunately. You see the 035 Kari came in. You've got, I don't think, I'm trying to see, I think the 199 was involved of Shelton. I think he got some damage. There's a few other drivers that came in, although I think there's only a few that were involved, 3 cars. I think Waterworth might have gotten some damage out of that, but definitely Punkari and the I can't find him on my telemetry anymore, and I just said his name. Ryan Shelton. Ryan Shelton.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Shelton we saw there with the onboard of Sean Butler did go down, slap the inside wall with the left side of his machine, and we just saw Sean Butler coming to pit lane to get that damage repaired as best as possible. It's a tough break for him. I mean, obviously the good news is that he is going to be battling for a playoff spot. He came into this race already locked in on points, but I'll bet he was certainly wanting to get into the playoffs with a 1 in the win column. Again, only 3 Grand National Series drivers have won during the course of this season. That's only been 3 races that they have won between them. So a lot of the one-off drivers, if you will, drivers coming down from the Cup Series in racing have been taking the checkered flags, which has made it even more important for these Grand National Series drivers to have the maximum points days, even if they aren't taking that checkered flag, because points have really been the talking point about these guys getting those playoff positions. A couple of drivers that are out of the race that we did not document. We already talked about Tyler Lennon, either out of the race of his accord or maybe not of his accord. We're not certain 100% on that one after the extracurricular activity between himself and Nemez under the last yellow flag. Kyle Lawrence Short and AJ Henderson have also gone to the garage area, so 11 drivers have gone behind the wall. That leaves us 31 of the original 43 drivers that are still on the racetrack and running. And with this caution coming out, it put, I believe, the 040 of Lane Tidwell back on the lead lap. So of the 31 drivers running, 29 will be on the same lap as the race leader, Garrett Conrad. I took the opportunity here to look. I mentioned I wasn't certain if this was Garrett Conrad's debut or not. Indeed it is. It's the first time that he took the green flag here in an FTF Grand National Series race. Garrett Conrad is a driver, as you'll see, the sponsor on the side panels of his car for Nexus Esports, which of course is a team that runs in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series, piloting rides for Anthony Burrows, Jake Matheson, and Ryan Doucette, who is in the field here tonight. Garrett Conrad is a driver in the Road to Pro Series for Nexus Esports. And so both he and his teammate, I guess if you will, Ryan Doucette, both having solid outings here tonight in their respective Ford Mustangs. Conrad leading this race, and Doucette riding comfortably in the 7th position.
Doucette's been making some good strides to try and get back up into the top 5. He started 10th a few laps ago. Before that, he even made his way into the top 10 in the heat, and I believe it was can't remember who he was battling right off the top of my head, although he was battling inside the top 10 in the 8th spot. But right now, 7th for the 77, trying to get back up. I'll tell you what, though, a driver I've been impressed with, and we've talked about him quite a bit, but we kind of just mentioning that he has been running in the spot he's been running, but Tyler Gary has been inside the top 10, even the top 5, and I don't think he's left it all race long, so be looking out for this 26 car. It's fast, and this driver knows how to pilot it around here. I would dare say that he's a contender to win this race. He had a great restart the last time by. If the stack up hadn't happened, he was looking for potentially a run down the back straightaway. He might have took it into turn 3 and tried to get the pass done. So be on the lookout for the 26 at the end of this one as well. But Seth, about ready to set them back up. I want to know, who do you got out of all these drivers that are running on the track? What are your who are your potential top 3 that we are going to see at the end of this one?
My top 3 are the guys that are running first, second, third for sure. Conrad, Gary, and Malik Ray. I mean, these guys have been up here inside of the top 5 pretty much the entirety of the day. Yes, I know Malik Ray faded outside the top 20, but that was because he was off strategy in terms of tires. He has been able to make his way up here when it counts the most. These cars have been the fastest. You could add Parker White into the mix there as well, but with Ray on that top side, I think he's going to have a very nice restart behind Conrad. If I'm picking someone to win this race, I love the starting track position out in clean air. That 9 of Garrett Conrad, he's been able to gap himself as well. Whoever is running second place has not been able to get to his back bumper, so I think Conrad has a very good shot of closing this thing out, but there's still quite a long ways to go in this one. There's going to be a total of 14 laps remaining, and bear in mind we could have those overtime green-white checkers as well, depending on what happens in the closing stages.
About ready to set them back underway. Green flag back in the air. Conrad again gets a great restart. The inside line of Gary did not. He spun the tires a little bit on the restart, was being pushed by Parker White. Now on the outside line, Malik Ray going to use the outside line to get around. Preferred line all the way, and Gary almost made some contact with the 11 going down the back straightaway as they fan out 3 wide back there between White and company.
It's Kalonix that was way down the inside as I think first we have hit the wall off of turn 2. That's what sent everybody scattering around that 6th, 7th position. Now it's Parker White on the inside, Bursk on the top, he'll go around, Doucette's going to do the same. White tries to find a spot in front of Kalonix, will do so. Andrew Schwartz now there up inside the top 10 in the 8th position.
Everyone single filing out
We
throughout
got a car in trouble back there, it's a big wreck. Is Tristan Hagenstein, the 27, hard up into the outside wall. Rich Jamison, I believe, got a piece of it. Jake Poulin down the apron of turn 2 as well. There's another car. Is that David Cabrera? The whole front end of that car completely missing on the Scotts Ford.
You can throw in Justin Malello as well. I think he's slow involved in that one in the back of the pack. Hagenstein was involved, as you said. Margot might have had a piece of it as he's slow back here. They got a driver on the inside. That might be Victor Valley that might have gotten a piece of it as well.
So look at what happened. Nate Stewart and Tristan Hagenstein battling. Oh, looked like maybe some gap whack there as the Ford blinked for a brief moment. He reappeared. He was alongside of the 27 and everybody scattering through turns 1 and 2 to avoid Tristan Hagenstein there. Back, take another look at that. There he is sideways. Seth Knoll gets a piece. Nathan Rabideau involved. There's Poole and Cabrera, Jamison all stacked up on the outside line. So about 6, 7 drivers involved in this one. And you mentioned it, Anthony. For the most part, with the cautions we've had here tonight, they've been solo car incidents. We've really been yet to see multi-car wrecks with the exception of those restart stack-ups. We're going to start to see more and more torn up race cars, I think, the closer and closer we get to the end of this race, which, I mean, we still got 10 laps to go. That may seem like there's not enough time for more drivers to have their machines all crunched up, but again, as I said, we've still got those potential overtime green-white checkers, 3 in total.
We do indeed, so it could play out to be a longer race than it was initially billed for. We are still awaiting the decision from these drivers is if they're going to come down pit road again, maybe throw out some strategy. I don't think we will, and the only reason I say that is because of tires. I don't think that these drivers have enough tires to be able to pull off a stop now to get some fresh rubber and then have some left over for potential green-white checkers. With there being more than 6 laps, I think it'll be about 8 laps when we go back to green, so a little bit too risky now. Also, track position, don't want to give that up. As we've seen on the restarts, it's hard to pass here. You really have to wait until the run develops before you can start using the inside line, and the outside line is so powerful on the restarts that if you're able to use it, then there's no looking back. We saw a lot of drivers fall to the back of the pack that last time out just simply because they started on the inside line. So with that being said, if we have another yellow that produces green white checkered, I definitely would say that we see some drivers come down and get some tires, try to make that run work. Malik Ray has again the benefit of having that extra set from falling to the back earlier and now working his way back up, so he might be the wild card of the top 10 right now, being the fact that he could come down and get some now, but with everyone staying out, again, that's unlikely and kind of defeats the purpose. But well, Seth, we tried. We got a little bit of a run. Now we're going to set them up again. I would dare say that these last 9 or so laps are going to be pretty intense, given the fact that these drivers have come so far, and now it all comes down to this between the top 5, especially as they haven't left each other's side, with the exception of Doucette. The top 4 hasn't left each other's side since the green flag.
I mean, knowing the kind of monster that the track of Darlington is, I'm fully expecting we're going to see number of cautions here in the closing stage. But you can see with our caution recap, I mean, we've gone almost 140 laps. Only 8 cautions have come out for 33 laps. That is incredible for these drivers. That may seem like a high number of cautions for people, but when you consider what these drivers have to deal with, not only with the conditions of the track, but how the cars were handling, side-by-side battling that we saw, trying to figure out how to give each other space. Saw a lot of give and take in this one. Long green flag runs. I think we had 2 or 3 long green flag runs of 25 to 30 laps. These guys have done a masterful job of not letting the track beat them. Now, basically, the race is in their hands on whether they're going to be taking this checkered flag or not. So now that they've got the opportunity to, in essence, be turned loose here in the closing stages of this race, I will give them 2 or 3 extra cautions here in these final stages, because now the checkered flag is on the line.
So interestingly enough, Malik Ray has chosen the inside line of the racetrack for his restart spot as the safety car peels down pit road. It's going to be Conrad, Ray, Gary, Bursk, and Doucette, your top 5 as we get ready to set them underway. Yet again, green flag back in the air. Conrad wasn't waiting around, and Ray tried to slide up in front of Gary, but so far hasn't been able to do it. Gary's still alongside. Can he get the run going into turn 1 to hold on to the second place spot, or can Ray sneak up inside? There's contact between the 2 of them, but Gary holds his ground. Drag race down the back straightaway. He's got
Carhartt in the wall. Big wreck in the back. That was Lucas Palesso I saw pound the outside wall. Sean Butler was collected as well. Couple of other cars scatter on the inside of the back straightaway. Jake Poulin amongst them in the 0-0. That was a hard shot into the outside retaining wall off of turn 2.
And that will put us under yellow yet again. The 45 also slow on the back straightaway. Not sure if you mentioned that Palesso was involved. That again, that might have been stack up. They were running pretty close together back there.
And Rabideau not giving the 45 a whole lot of room off that corner.
I don't know if he made contact. That looked like a tire went down.
Jake Poulin trying to figure out where Butler was, picked the wrong lane as he T-bones the 32 of Sean Butler, who again, remember, was back there because he was involved in that stack-up incident, just the caution before.
That was a hard shot to the outside wall. Came down nowhere to go for Butler and company as they tried to use the back straightaway, and just a last-minute ram onto the side of the 32. That's definitely going to be day done for Butler and company.
I put that on Rabideau, but looking there at that angle when we were looking from the point of view of the 32 with the camera focused on him, almost wondering now if maybe that 45 turned down a little bit coming off of the corner, hit the contact with the right rear quarter panel of the 93. Whichever the case, it was almost kind of, we said that these corners off of 2 and 4, they really narrow out, so it could have been that classic case of 2 drivers wanting even just the minuscule same amount of space on the racetrack, and unfortunately the contact made. And usually when it comes to a track like Darlington, it's that car on the outside that's going to be the one that pays the price.
Fastest line is where another driver is. It never ceases to fail, so we'll have to set them up again. This will set us up for, I believe, our 9th caution of the night. and we will get our 8th restart of the night. Well, technically our 9th restart as well. Forget that the start of the race doesn't count. So our 9th restart of the race as well. Now Conrad did get the lead of the race, or had continued to lead the race. Tyler Gary did get 2nd place out of that. Malik Ray falls back to 3rd place. Now here comes the kicker. Do you think that Malik Ray did that on purpose, maybe hoping that Aguero would come out in quick succession? That way he'd be able to get the outside line, or do you think that this might be kind of an interesting scenario that he found himself in after choosing the wrong lane the last time out?
Well, honestly, I think Malik Ray is going to take the inside line again here because I don't think Tyler Gary has any thoughts about lining up on the inside of Garrett Conrad here with the choose cone. I think he's going to line up behind the 9, take that outside line this upcoming restart. I think Malik Ray might go back to that inside and try and be the first car on the inside coming back for the upcoming restart again. Obviously, it didn't work out from the last time, but that's one more position that he would be ahead of than where he would be if he decided to line up there to the top side. And I mean, if he goes up to the top, then what does TJ Burst do, or Ryan Doucette? Do they then go to the inside? Because that'd be a net gain of 3 positions they pick up without doing a thing with the green, without, under caution. They wouldn't even be picking up those spots under green flag conditions. So it's going to be interesting here as far as the strategy, but I think if you're Malik Ray, you had no control over the timing of the caution. It was frozen field when the yellow flag came out. I think that you're going to be taking the inside line here. I think if you're Gary, you're taking the top, and there you see it. Yep, 26 to the top. 20 car going to take the inside line, and we'll see who else is going to line up behind him here as we get ready to go back green. Before we do, just to remind everybody that next time you're going to see Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals will be in 2 weeks' time, taking an off week next week. September 4th, we'll be bringing you coverage of the Motorsports Drop 250, the first playoff race at Daytona. And for those that planned on tuning into the FTF Cup Series race tomorrow, on bottom split with Hurricane Henry coming up the East Coast, FTF is going to be postponing that race. That race will not be run tomorrow on bottom split. Once again, the FTF Cup Series race will not be running tomorrow on August 22nd. We get to go back green. In regulation, it will be 3 laps to go. Garrett Conrad has been really good here on these restarts. He's been able to keep Malik Ray flat-footed. Ray's trying to figure out when to go here. He's actually ahead of Conrad. What is the 20 doing?
Yeah, that is absolutely jumped the restart. Has Malik Ray gone miles ahead of Conrad. Conrad now falls into 2nd place. Gary has fallen into 3rd place. Chaos at the start of the race is Bursk under pressure from Kalonix. Kalonix trying to fall in, and there you go. I think Malik Ray jumped the start. He's got to serve a penalty.
Absolutely jumped the start. He may have thought he heard the 9 get up through the gears.
Whoa! Cars in the back. Huge crash in turn 3.
Tristan Hagenstein once again. Andy Margot in the 48. Lane Tidwell coming to pit road. Jack Painter further back there in the 22.
Seth Knowles in it with heavy damage on the front end.
Wow, big hits. 2-3 cars coming down pit road, trailing smoke. Go back and see what happened here. Not even sure who it started with.
I think it started with Painter. I think Jack Painter or Seth Knoll. Started with Seth Knoll.
He is, oh yeah. Attacking between the two before they even got to turn 3. David Cabrera was collected up in that. Valley got a piece in the 83.
I think this is a result of the confusion from the restart. They might have been yelling stuff over the radio and then just misjudged where the 22 is running.
Another look at it here. The 22 of Jack Painter, and you'll see Seth Knoll makes the move to the inside. Either one gives space to each other going into the corner, and Rich Jameson, there's Andy Margot, there's Tristan Hagenstein, David Cabrera, all involved there. Malik Ray has parked it. He's out of the race after that. Obviously, EOL, I think he was going to have to come to pit road and serve a penalty. Let's take the opportunity to go back, take a look at that restart, because he clearly jumped it. But was he of the assumption that the 9 was going up through the gears, getting ready to go. We're through the center of 3 and 4, and the 20 car is still at nosed ahead of Garrett Conrad. I don't understand that.
So as I'm looking at it now, yeah, I don't. He just went. Yeah, out of the exit of turn 4, he's just gone. Everyone stacked up though. It was a massive stack up from everybody. It's the 11. I don't know what he was thinking, honestly. I mean, all I know is that everyone stacked up behind. I think that he was trying to anticipate it. Everyone was trying to anticipate it, but the 9 didn't get going at all. And I'll give some credit to these other drivers. Usually what happens is Conrad has gone somewhere in the middle of turn 4, and he didn't do it that time. He waited extremely long. It was a huge hold from the 9, and I think that Ray just got impatient and went thinking that Conrad was going to go and misjudged it completely.
It seemed like once he had already gone, he just thought, well, basically that would be considered a jump on me. I'll just keep my foot in the throttle, see what the call is going to be. And obviously, as we saw, the call that he had to EOL, we saw him pull low off of turn 2 onto the back straightaway and taking that machine to the garage area. Will not be finishing out this race right now, being scored in the 28th position. So the pole sitter will not be going coast to coast here tonight at Darlington. And you're right, the 9 did not go in his usual spot, but again, being the control car, he gets the choice of when he wants to accelerate. Everybody else has to react to when he goes. And I said the fact that he kind of on the last restart had caught Malik Ray flat-footed. That's why Malik was battling with Tyler Gary for second place then. He did it again. He kind of suckered him in, and Malik Ray was just not ready for the timing that the 9 was going to get ready to go. So very costly mistake there for Malik Ray, and it's going to cost him a shot at this checkered flag.
It is going to open the door for some other drivers, though, such as Bursk, who's going to line up on the inside of row 1 now. Kolonix moves up a spot. Everyone moves up a spot, essentially. So, but Tyler Gary has still elected the outside line. I think that's a smart move, given the fact that the outside line has been the preferred lane. This is our first attempt at a green-white checker. We get up to 3 before we call the race under yellow. So we'll see what comes of this restart. Garrett Conrad, Tyler Gary, TJ Bursk, Alex Kolonix. That makes up your top 4. And then Doucette, White, Pancari, Schwartzworth, and Waterworth now inside the top 10 will make up the rest of the top 10. Pace car will leave for the pit lane. Will Conrad wait? He holds. No, he's leaving now. Conrad gets a whale of a restart. And now the outside line. Here comes Gary and Burst trying to battle for second place at the line.
Mixing up the timing of the restarts is Garrett Conrad that pays dividends as now Burst tries to edge ahead. Got Gary with the preferred line on the top. He'll clear to second. Burst in front of Ryan Doucette. He'll take third. Doucette back to fourth. Got some drivers fanning out further back. There is 26 drivers still on the lead lap taking the green flag here. Looks like we may get back to the white flag. If we do, next flag will end the race.
And we will take the white flag. Conrad leading the way. TJ Bursk now moves up into a third place in front, behind Tyler Gary. Gary trying to catch up. Gary's got to run. Tyler Gary has got a whale of a run. He's running on the ragged edge. Got loose coming out of 2, and that's going to open the door for Bursk because there's contact between the 2 of them for second place. And now Doucette's in the wall as Conrad comes out at turn 4 for the final time. He's going to win tonight at Darlington, and he has just amazing win off of a restart at the final, of our final restart.
Yeah, lost for words for me too. Garrett Conrad, his debut race here in the FTF Grand National Series, gets to the front, dominates after that. Wow, style points to Nate Stewart back there out of turn 2, by the way. Tony Hawking on that safer barrier, but Garrett Conrad, first race, his debut, he takes the checkered flag. What a run by him, and again, it all came down to mixing it up on those restarts. Nobody was ready for his acceleration points, and he just drove away from that 3-way second place battle in the closing stages.
I have recovered from my my failure of learning the English language, and holy cow, there was a lot that was happening on that last lap. I was for sure thinking that Gary and Burst were going to go around, but Conrath wins tonight. Not quite coast to coast, but he led almost every single lap of this race. I don't think there's been a time where the 9 hasn't been leading at some point, other than the beginning of the race where we had Ray leading. But fantastic win. Was able to really, as you said, time these restarts perfectly. He always mixed it up. Sometimes we go in the middle of 4, sometimes we go just after the exit, sometimes just waited for other drivers to make mistakes to try to pull away. And he ran a solid race. I don't think he was ever in a position where he had to really battle, save for on restarts. So put his 9 in front, never looked back, and that's got to be one of the most dominant performances I think we've seen at Darlington in quite some time.
I love FTF. I mean, where else can a driver that finishes 26th in the modified get to do a victory Polish lap? Seth Knoll right there in the 54 going around there, waving to the fans and taking a little Alan Kulwicki Polish victory lap here at Darlington. But as well as the fact that we ended up having a debuting driver go to victory lane here tonight, the playoff grid, at least the 11 slots, are official. With Conrath winning, no different Grand National Series driver going to victory lane. Your official 11 drivers that will be battling for the championship, wildcard notwithstanding: Jonathan Oates, Brett Pancari, Jake Poulin, Nathan Rabideau, Andrew Schwartz, Sean Butler, Nate Stewart, Matthew Zwack, Lucas Palesso, Gary Waterworth, and Tristan Hagenstein. All those drivers locked in via win or via points, and with no different winner here tonight as well. The 5 drivers that in 2 weeks' time at Daytona will battle for that wild card spot: Ryan Araki, Cosmin Ishinosu, Justin Malello, Ethan Corder, and Evan Rice. So not much changed from the green flag dropping to the checkered flag waving here at Darlington. I think the engine just expired on the 54. Nonetheless, took a lot of moving and shaking, beating and banging here at Darlington to get us this checkered flag, and man, it was a finish worth waiting for.
Absolutely. This has been one wild race for these drivers and for us to call. And you got to give credit to these drivers. There were some times where it looked like that they were going to make contact when they didn't. And there were some times that you really thought that there was going to be multiple car wrecks, or even when they were on ragged edge coming out of turns, that they were able to hold on to it. And that's another thing I love about FTF, is that they are able to really let these cars hang out and they're able to control them. And that was something that was on display for sure here tonight. The best of the best was able to be Garrett Conrad tonight. Tyler Gary and TJ Bursk will make up your top 3, as Ryan Doucette and Parker White will round out the top 5. And it really came down to that last caution before within 20 laps to go, where everyone came down pit road. That was the last time we saw them on pit road, and they spent a lot of time under caution, so there wasn't enough time for the tires to wear down. So it was almost like running the last couple of laps with fresh tires. So really got to push the car and try to keep it in front of and trying to make passes where you actually had some rubber and able to do that with. So it might have also contributed to why we saw some pretty intense battle for second on back.
Definitely came down to track position as well. Seemed like a lot of the drivers that started up at the front or ran at the front the entirety of this race finished up at the front. There were a couple of exceptions. We saw Sean Butler have the restart problem where he got spun around, never was able to recover and work his way back up to the front. I think Sean ended up finishing this race back in the 31st position. You also had Malik Ray, who was very strong in this one after qualifying on the pole. He ended up having the restart violation. He finishes all the way back outside of the top 20 and 28th. But, I mean, you look at these guys: Conrad, Gary, Bursk, Doucette, White. These were guys that were up inside of the top 10 pretty much the entirety of the race, for a majority of them up inside of the top 5 pretty much the entirety of this one, too. Darlington's a tough place to pass, and so a lot of emphasis, I think, was put as well on putting down a solid qualifying lap and having that good starting track position.
Absolutely. It was one of the hardest tracks to pass at tonight for sure, because I think that outside line was just so powerful on the restarts. You weren't able to do it under those conditions. And then as the run went on, you really had to let the tires start wearing off before you could make the inside line work, which is usually the opposite at most tracks we go to. But here, definitely not the case. But Darlington certainly did not disappoint tonight, and it has set up what is going to be a pretty intense uh, end of the regular season going into our playoffs. And we still have one more race again before we have the full playoff grid set, and that will be at the wild card race at Daytona as a prelim for the uh, first playoff race at Daytona as well. So a little bit of time before we get to set the full grid, but we have a pretty good idea of who we can expect to see in the final or in the playoffs for our first race.
Today we get to our top 3 finishers here tonight. We talked to this guy in victory lane a couple of weeks ago at Michigan. He's your 3rd place finisher here tonight. Let's talk with TJ Bursk. TJ, Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, I mean, it just looked like here tonight it was driver versus driver, driver versus car, and driver versus track. A lot for you guys to have to think about, but really intense racing up there at the front of the field and all the way through the field as well. One thing that I observed, what it just seemed like that inside line, it was so difficult to pass. So where were some of the key areas you would have to look for to be able to pick up positions?
It's definitely the restarts. If you had a good pit stop, got some track position, that was huge because, like you said, man, the inside was just non-existent. There was no grip down there, so passing was really hard. I think the only time you could really pass under green flag conditions was either right on the restarts, or very late in the run once the tires were really starting to be spread out. So, it was very hard to pass, I will say. So definitely restarts and pit stops were the way to go to gain track position.
We definitely had some drama during some of the restarts. We saw a lot of times where some drivers would get stacked up and have kind of an accordion effect throughout the field. What was the restarts like? Were the tires kind of not wanting to grip onto the track and was causing some spins, or was it the leaders at the front that were stacking up the field and then catching the other drivers out, or either a jump start or a late restart?
Well, Garrett definitely did a good job of controlling the race. He got everyone antsy there on the restarts, which definitely benefited him. But the rest of the pack, it made it tough on us. And these cars have some power, so wheel spin was definitely a factor. It was hard to get the power down. So you were just trying to keep it from wheel spinning and go as fast as you can on the restarts there. So
We ended up seeing some rather long green flag runs. We saw about 2 or 3 runs where you guys got 25 to 30 green flag laps in. We had that longer run, which I think you guys got about maybe 35 laps in. But we ended up seeing those cautions come out, though. So it kind of seemed to take away any opportunity for potential tire strategy to play into this race. So how much emphasis did you put on qualifying coming into this one, just based on the fact that, as we pointed out before we began these interviews, it seemed like those guys that qualified up at the front were able to stay at the front?
yeah, qualifying was definitely big this race. I mean, there were some guys though that worked their way up through the field. So I mean, there was ways even if you didn't qualify to still get a good finish. But I would definitely agree. Qualifying made a big difference. Staying up front and working on getting one by one track position was definitely the move.
Well, TJ, congratulations on another great performance. Mention the fact that former winner here this season a couple of weeks ago at Michigan, another solid outing here tonight at Darlington. Congratulations. We're now going to give the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
Yeah, shout out to the guys in the Nexus Team Speak, mom and dad if they're watching. Shout out to them, and shout out to you guys and everyone at FTF. It's a really fun league. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, thank you guys.
Jay Bursk, P3 here tonight in the Motorsports Drop 200 at Darlington. Once again, congratulations on a great run, and see you in a couple of weeks at the High Banks of Daytona.
Yes, sir.
Let's see if we can now get the guy that finished just ahead of him. The two actually exchanged a bit of contact going into turn 3 there on the final lap, but both able to keep it together, keep it pointing in the right direction. Let's talk with the Buckshot Jones throwback here tonight, Tyler Gary. Hey, Tyler, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, I'll tell you what, when we saw you make your debut here in the series, we saw you really consistent week after week after week. Hit a bit of a bump in the road at last week's race at Bathurst, but nonetheless, though, we've definitely seen consistency on your side. You finished second place here tonight. Was there anything you could have done there into turn 3 if you weren't having to worry about the 70 out your rearview mirror to maybe get Conrad there through 3 and 4?
No, at that point, I got loose off of 2. I saw Garrett get into the wall a little bit in the middle 1 and 2. I thought it up too much, or more than I should have, and got loose off of 2. So at that point, I knew I didn't have anything for him, and I just had to battle and try to hold on to second. And shout out to TJ for not wrecking me into 3 like I should have, because I threw a dirty block.
It was an interesting restart the last time by. We saw that you were driving pretty well throughout the entire race. So what was kind of the strategy going throughout the race? Was it kind of conserving the tires and holding on for a longer run, or were you more concerned about it on the end of the race where we saw a lot more short runs than we saw long runs?
I was trying to just save my tires and manage my stuff when I was behind people. I didn't do a very good job of it. I'm not very good here, to be honest, when it comes to saving tires. Like, I think the second long run we had, my right rear was pretty much on fire, and I was just getting passed nonstop. Like, I was 2 3 tenths off anyone near me. But I think I started figuring out near the end, and unluckily we got all those restarts at the end, and I just positioned myself well, starting fourth on the outside. It seemed to be better to start right behind Garrett on the outside than to start on the bottom, just because you could pinch the guy off at 2 and just have the better run down the backstretch and keep second.
Yeah, I want to just touch on that a little bit too, because as we know, FTF implementing the choose cone rule this season, and we saw certain drivers that would be back around third, fourth, fifth position take the opportunity with that inside line available to go up to the inside of the front row. We saw you fluctuate in this race anywhere from second to around the fourth position. I mean, did the choose cone rule in any way, let's say when you were running in third or fourth place, kind of tempt you if that inside line was available on the front row, or were you pretty much committed that knowing that the faster way around the racetrack was that outside line, and that was where you were going to stay the entire time?
Yeah, no, I definitely did one time. I think I was fifth or sixth, and pretty much everyone in front of me picked the top, and so that's how I got my track position for later in the race. Is I just restarted second on the bottom, and I was able to keep that track position. I think Malik got by me, and then after that, I just kept on picking the top to restart behind Garrett, and I just managed to keep the track position there.
Well, Tyler, great run for you here tonight. Loved seeing that Buckshot Jones throw back out here at Darlington Raceway. P2 here at the Lady in Black. Congratulations. We're going to give you the opportunity now to thank some sponsors, do some shout-outs.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Slipstream Media for sponsoring me this season at FTF. He helped me a lot with the charter. I'd like to thank all the admins who put up with all the BS that we go through the races and stuff. So big shout out to all of them. Shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast. I know you guys do a good job, and I think that's it.
Tyler Gary, second place here tonight in the Motorsports Drop 200 at Darlington. Congratulations, Tyler, and see you in a couple of weeks at Daytona.
Thank you.
Tyler Gary actually took part in the season opener at Daytona, finished 15th, so keep an eye on him when we get to Florida. Let's now go down to Victory Lane and talk with our race winner, Garrett Conrad. Garrett, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Danforth.
Well, man, welcome to the FTF Grand National Series debut race and pick up the victory. Congratulations. Man, you were the king of those restarts, though. Everybody was caught flat-footed. Nobody seemed to know where your acceleration points were going to be. I mean, obviously, that good starting track position with the outside of the front row, how important was that for you to be up there at the front late in this one?
Yeah, it's always super important, and every time I had to kind of change the spot where I was going so they couldn't time it right, and Leak there at the end tried timing it. Just didn't quite work out, but yeah, overall, fun race and good run.
Oh, congratulations on your win, first and foremost. What I want to know is that restart, the penultimate restart, where we saw that Malik Ray jumped the start. Were you planning on going before that? Did you bail out of the throttle to have that happen? Because you run a perfect race pretty much all race long, had the lead the entire time. And as you say, timing your restarts differently, so they couldn't get it. But that really kind of put the nail in the coffin for his race. Was that part of the strategy to wait and hold off a lot longer than usual to see if you'd get a jump, or were you kind of surprised that happened?
Yeah, I was probably gonna go a tiny bit earlier, but every time I was just about to go, it looked like he started going, so I was just trying to play it right so that he couldn't time it perfectly on me. But he tried his best for sure, so I don't blame him getting the jump there.
Now, obviously, we ended up seeing at least half of the drivers that started this race up inside of the top 10 finish up inside of the top 10. Thought it was very difficult for drivers to pass. In the closing stages, though, with us having the overtime green-white checkers, let's say you had somebody on your back bumper prepared to maybe try and pull a slide job. I mean, how, as the race leader, you're looking in your rearview mirror, how do you prepare for something like that? How do you prepare a counter strategy against something like that? Because it just seemed like if you were going to make a pass here at Darlington with the inside line as unusable as it was, that was the only way it was going to be able to be possible to make a move.
Yeah, just kind of keep trying to keep a gap as much as I could there, and if they're not like really right on your bumper, they're probably aren't going to be able to make the move to slide job you or something. So just try to keep a car length or two at least, and hope that they can get the run on you.
Well, Garrett, congratulations on a job well done here tonight. Start this race in second, lead the most laps here this evening, bring home that checkered flag in your debut race. We're now going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you. Sponsors and shoutouts.
Don't got too many sponsors, but thank you Nexus Esports and FTF for putting on the league. I normally run the Cup Series, but decided to run tonight just for a little tune-up for next week's playoffs in the Cup Series.
It's Garrett Conrad. He is your winner here tonight at Darlington. He was able to tame the lady in black. Congratulations, Garrett, on the victory. Go and enjoy it.
Thank you guys very much.
I said coming into tonight, I mean, what an incredible place for drivers' playoff hopes to either begin or be dashed. A track as technical and as treacherous as Darlington Raceway, no doubt about it. The track too tough to tame was too tough for some drivers, but there were a number of other guys that definitely looked very strong, and as a couple of guys as well that needed good finishes to point their way in and had to make sure that a driver didn't go to victory lane that was battling for the Grand National Series Championship. You've got guys like Gary Waterworth, who was able to make his way up here late inside of the top 10. Andrew Schwartz was able to make his way up inside the top 10. These were guys that kind of overcame the odds. As I mentioned, guys that were up at the front, stayed at the front, but these guys started the race from outside of the top 25.
And they were able to just use their patience, work their way through the field. I mean, we've said it a lot tonight that passing was almost impossible at this track, given the fact that the inside just didn't work unless you were on a long run. We did have a lot of long runs, especially earlier in the first half and then throughout most of the second half of the race. So it wasn't like we didn't have chances for them to do it. It's just it took a long time for them to develop. But using pit strategy, using the restarts to their advantage, using the misfortune of other drivers to put their way through the field was definitely a contender for that. And I mean, yeah, you look through the field, you've got drivers in the top 10 that I didn't think that we'd see. You got Schwartz, you've got Waterworth, you got Oates. Ryan Shelton came up and finished in 10th after having gone backwards quite a bit. But a lot of these drivers, aside from the top three, really, we didn't talk about them much tonight. And it was, a lot of the reverse of that, a lot of drivers we did talk about in the top 10 throughout the beginning of the night, throughout the second half of the race, fell out of the top 10. We didn't see him ever again, including Malik Gray, which was the dominant car, one of the dominant cars all day, and a simple mistake. And that's how much these races can change. One mistake from Ray completely changed the face of how this race turned out.
Definitely did. Well, playoff grid is basically put together. One more spot remains, and that's going to be determined in 2 weeks' time at Daytona. 5 drivers vying for that 12th and final playoff position. Congratulations to the drivers that either won or pointed their way in. You'll be seeing them begin their road to the championship in 2 weeks' time at the Daytona International Speedway. FTF Grand National Series will be off next Saturday. We've got a full week of racing coming up here as well on the Flatout Racing Network, including tomorrow. It is the kickoff race for the TNR Super Speedway Series, as they will be at Daytona International Speedway for their season openers. So that and a lot more are going to be coming here during the course of this week, and then we'll be right back here on September the 4th, I do believe it is, to be able to bring you coverage of the first playoff race for FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals in the Motorsports Drop 250 at Daytona International Speedway. So I hope you guys will join us for that. Anthony, has been a wild one here tonight. We've got ourselves a debut winner. We've got ourselves the playoff grid basically put together. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
It's always fun to call races at Darlington, and this one did not disappoint. A full field of cars and plenty of action, and we've got playoffs on the horizon, so always fun to kick those off. So we're getting close to crowning a champion.
Garrett Conrad tames the Lady in Black here tonight at Darlington Raceway. Congratulations once again to him. Thank you to all of you that tuned in this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night as well as in 2 weeks' time here for the next race of the FTF Grand National Series. For Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your evening if you're on the West Coast. Enjoy your Sunday morning if you're on the East Coast. I've been Seth Cole, and we will see you guys next time. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.